Welcome back to Rejecting the Alpha, a werewolf romance story by Barry Wiles. Chapter 23. My eyes landed on Peyton, who was chatting with her friends. When her eyes met mine, she smiled. "There you are," she exclaimed as she waved me over. "I was about to go look for you. Parker can't have you all to himself." I rolled my eyes at her. I was trying to get away from him. I pointed out. It was Peyton's turn to roll her eyes at me before releasing a chuckle. "We were just about to go dancing," Riley stated. "Want to join us?" I smiled and nodded. The girls cheered before walking to the dance floor. Peyton looped her arm around mine, while dragging me with him. I laughed as Riley started dancing crazily. Vivian and Kennedy started joining in, all three of them imitating each other's dance moves. The song Classic by MKTO played through the speakers. All of us danced and laughed at each other. This was probably the most fun I've had in a long time. "You're so good at dancing." Kennedy commented loudly, so I could hear her over the music. I grinned at her. "Thank you." I used to play Just Dance all the time with Anthony and Serena. I guess that helps, and also all the partying I've previously done. We continued dancing, but I stopped when I felt eyes on me. I turned my eyes and furrowed my brows when I saw no one. "What's wrong, Jamie?" Kennedy asked curiously as she tapped my shoulder. I turned to face her and shrugged. "Nothing is wrong." She nodded and went back to dancing. The song ended, and now me, myself, and I started playing. I love the song. Vivian shouted, so we can hear her. We all cheered. I swayed my hips to the beat, mouthing the words of the song. Kennedy had gone to the kitchen to grab us all drinks. She came back with them and passed them out. We clinked our cups together and drank it. I didn't care what it was, but allowed the alcohol to burn my throat as I swallowed it. It had been a while since I last drank, and it felt kind of refreshing. But I didn't want to go back to my old ways, going out partying at least 4 times a week. The other girls went back for more, but me, being the smart one, didn't go back because there had to be one of us who was capable of driving, and I don't know if Parker is drinking or not. I felt an arm snake around my waist. I stiffened as a breath hit my ear. I tried to turn around, but the person didn't let me, and I went to scream, but they covered my mouth with their hand. I felt myself being dragged away into an empty hallway. My back was slammed against the wall. I let out a groan from the impact. My eyes focused to the lighting, and that's when I felt my eyes widened. "Hello, babe. Missed me?" The person spoke. I scowled at them. "What the hell do you want, Kyan?" I sneered. He smirked at me as his eyes followed down my body. I scoffed. Of course he would check me out. His smirk widened. "You've definitely changed. It will make this even better." I glared at him. "I dare you to touch me and see what happens." The smirk on his face didn't fade. "Feisty. I like it," he commented as he took a step near me. I growled at him as I felt my wolf surfacing. "Please let me beat him up," Irene growled. Kyan's smirk didn't falter. He took another step towards me. "Let's do it," I replied to Irene. Before Irene could take over, I let out a small cry as pain coursed through my body. I felt another sting, and I squeezed my eyes shut. "What's happening?" I shouted at Irene. "Your skin is coming in contact with silver," she panicked. I opened my eyes to see that Kyan had tied my wrists together using the familiar silver ropes. Pain continued to shock me, and I gritted my teeth. Kyan grinned at my pain. "Now that you can't defend yourself, I can get what I want," he whispered. I shivered in disgust as he pushed himself against me so my legs couldn't move. Damn it. I couldn't mind link anyone because no one from my pack was here. I was going to scream and hope someone could find me since I couldn't defend myself. Why is this guy always prepared? It's as if he knew I was going to show up. Before I could scream, he pressed his lips to mine harshly. I didn't kiss back. Instead, I bit his lip as hard as I could until I could taste the blood. He groaned in pain and shoved away from me. He placed the back of his hand against his mouth, trying to wipe the blood away. He shot daggers my way, and I smirked at him. I then felt my cheek stinging. Bastard. He slapped me. I didn't want him getting to me, so I just smirked again. Still pathetic, I see. He stepped close to me again and gripped my jaw roughly in his hand. If I were you, I'd keep your pretty mouth shut. He dragged his hand down my body and slid it behind me, gripping my ass. Why are you doing this? I snapped as I tried to free my face from his rough grip. Why not? He answered me with another question. I rolled my eyes annoyed. You're sick. I spat at him. He chuckled darkly as he taped my mouth shut with duct tape and roughly grabbed my hair and tiled my head to the side. He pressed his lips on the side of my neck. I wrinkled my nose, disgusted by him. I felt tears prick my eyes as I was being violated like I have in the past. I felt his hand pull my dress up to my waist. My eyes went wide as I started to squirm, tried to ignore the pain from the ropes. He slid his hand inside my under and grabbed my ass. This time I squirmed even more and tried pushing him away from my body, but the silver was making me too weak. Just before Kyan could do anything else, a loud growl erupted from the end of the hallway. Kyan didn't move but stared at the tall silhouette that was coming towards us at a fast pace. Before Kyan could react, he was pulled away from me and roughly shoved into the wall next to me. I caught a glimpse of dark hair and the familiar scent of my mate. My eyes widened as I watched Parker repeatedly punch Kyan across the face until his face was covered in blood. "Don't touch her again!" he shouted as he delivered one last punch to him. Kyan just slumped against the wall. Parker let go of him and he fell to the floor. I just stared at him in shock, completely forgetting about the silver. Parker turned to me and I gasped. He had a crazed look in his eyes as he stalked towards me. His eyes softened when he noticed my glassy eyes. He went to remove the rope, but jumped back from the silver. He looked back at me and removed the duct tape from my mouth. I resisted the urge to flinch from the pain. I let out a breath and let out a choked sob as images of what could have happened filled my head. Parker flinched when he heard my sob, which caused him to growl, and ripped the ropes off of me without caring about the silver. I brought my hands to my face and looked at my wrists, which were now red with small cuts on it. My poor wrist just keeps getting hurt. I looked down and realized my dress was still pulled up, so I quickly pulled it down. I looked up at Parker, who was watching me intently. "Are you okay?" "Who was that?" he suddenly asked. It was as if I couldn't keep my walls up anymore. The tears started pouring down my face along with sobs. I couldn't stop, and I didn't like the fact that I was crying in front of him. All of my pain was being released along with all of my frustration and every emotion I was feeling. I felt arms wrap around me and pull me into a hug. The tingles and warmth of my mate overwhelmed me. I allowed my arms to wrap around his waist as I buried my face into his chest. I may be overdramatic about this, but I can't help it. Parker rubbed my back with his large hand and rested his chin on top of my head. After a few minutes, I tried to pull away, but he tightened his hold. He pulled me closer to him and buried his face in my neck. Before I could say anything, he pulled away. He didn't touch me, but started walking towards where he came from, but waited for me to catch up. I walked up to him with my head down. I hope my makeup isn't messed up to show that I was crying. "I'm going to go to the bathroom," I said once I found my voice. It was hoarse, but I tried to ignore it. I turned, but Parker gripped my elbow. He shook his head at me. "You look fine. We're going to leave," he stated, nodding his head toward the front door. I furrowed my eyebrows. "What about the girls?" I asked, looking around to see if I could see them. Parker let out a sigh. "Fine." This time I grabbed his wrist and dragged him into the crowd of people. I looked around in hopes that they were standing around chatting. Unfortunately, they weren't. Maybe they're dancing? I dragged Parker to the dance floor and looked around. Victorious by panic, at the disco played loudly on the speakers as people danced to it. I turned around to make sure Parker was still behind me, because at some point I let go of his wrist. He was still there before I turned around. I was pushed into Parker. He placed his hands on my hips to steady me. "Thanks," I muttered, brushing my hair out of my face. I felt my breath get caught in my throat as I looked up at Parker, who was staring down at me, his eyes dark as they locked on mine. Why is he so tall? We just stared at each other, not saying a word, and not breaking eye contact. The only sound I could hear was Brendan Urie's voice. I licked my lips nervously, but instantly regretted it when Parker's eyes watched the simple motion and his jaw clenched. In one swift move, he turned me around so my back was pressed against his chest, and he gripped my hips. He lowered his head by my ear and growled lowly. "Don't do that." I raised both of my eyebrows before smirking. "What this?" I asked innocently as I turned my head and teasingly licked my lips once again. He growled again, and he pulled me closer to him. "Yes," he hissed through gritted teeth. I smirked before facing forward. "I have an idea." Irene spoke. "What?" I asked curiously. I could feel her grinning. "Let's tease him," she suggested before adding, "just to give him a hard time, showing that we aren't appreciating the way he treats us and that we can have control." I grinned, liking that idea very much. I purposely rolled my hips back, making sure to do it slowly. His grip on my hips tightened. I rolled my hips again. "Shit," I heard him breathe out quietly. My smirk widened as I placed my hands over his to add an effect. I rolled my hips once again. This time he growled in my ear. "What are you doing?" His voice dropped a few octaves lower and was full of lust. The smirk dropped from my face as I clenched my jaw at his tone. It sounded so sexy. Instead of answering him, I continued to grind on him again. He breathed heavily in my ear as I continued grinding on him. I was enjoying this way too much, and I hated it. Irene didn't mind this at all. In fact, she wanted more. I didn't want more, and I didn't like the way my body was reacting to his. There were people dancing around us, similar to what I was doing, but they were all drunk. Some were even being a bit more crazy while I was purposely being slow, just to tease him. I used a hand to bring Parker's face to mine and turned my face to him. I continued grinding while latching my lips to the base of his neck. He sucked in a breath as my lips moved up his neck to the sensitive part behind his ear. I licked and sucked on his skin, gently making sure that it's like a tease. Parker's eyes were closed, and I knew that he was enjoying this way too much. I glanced and saw the girl standing by the front door chatting. It took all my willpower to step out his grip, and it snapped open. His eyes were pitch black, showing that his wolf was at surface. I just smirked at him. I glanced down and noticed how excited he really was. The smirk on my face grew. "Tried jerking off without thinking about me," I said smugly while dragging my finger down his chest before walking off toward the girl. I didn't both glancing over my shoulder, but I kept a smug look on my face. "Where have you been?" "Where's Parker?" Peyton asked. She then raised an eyebrow at my facial expression. "What's up with you?" She then looked behind me. I'm guessing at Parker, who was probably walking over. "What did you do?" She whispered at me. I shrugged my shoulders, smiling. "I didn't do anything." She narrowed her eyes at me while a small smirk played on her lips. She gave me a "you'll tell me later" look. "Let's go," she said while opening the front door. We all exited the house and made our way to her car. I realized that Riley wasn't with us. "Where's Riley?" I asked curiously. I then realized that if she's not with us, I can sit in the front and there will be enough seats. "She went home with a friend of hers," Peyton replied. When we reached her car, I got in the passenger seat. I relaxed in my seat, realizing how tense I was. I could feel eyes on me, but I didn't bother glancing back. Instead, I had a small conversation with Peyton. She was asking me questions like what I like to do and stuff. "How old are you?" she asked curiously. 18, I replied before adding, "I'll be 19 soon." Peyton glanced at me before looking ahead. "Really? When?" "The 24th, so in a couple weeks," I replied, shrugging. I actually forgot that it was soon. I usually celebrated it with my family and my friends, but I guess I won't be doing that anymore. I frowned at the thought. It'll be so different. Peyton pulled up to Parker's house. I then realized that I'm probably in trouble for what I did to Parker. I quickly said goodbye to her and got out of the car before Parker could even open his door. I raced up the driveway and unlocked the door with my key. I ran upstairs and down the hall as fast as my heels would let me. A couple times I stumbled but kept going. I opened my door, but it was closed before I could slip in. "Where do you think you're going?" Parker asked. I couldn't see him because of the darkness in the hallway, but I could feel his presence beside me. "To my room," I said in a duh tone. He ignored me and decided to cut to the chase. "What was that?" he asked, his voice showing no emotion. I raised an eyebrow. "What was what?" I asked, pretending to be confused. I kept my face full of confusion, just in case he can actually see my face. I felt his breath fan my face. "You know what?" he whispered, his voice now husky. A smirk grew on my face. "Oh, you're still on that? Well then, I guess you should go take a cold shower. I'm going to bed." I went to open it, but Parker closed it again. I let out a frustrated sigh. "What?" I snapped. I felt a hand slide into the curls in my hair, which were now loose due to all the activity that occurred at the party. I felt my head being tilted to the side. Before I could protest, warm lips pressed against the side of my neck. My breath hitched as they began to suck gently on the skin and licking it. I closed my eyes, savoring the feeling. He kept one hand tangled in my hair, and the other one was resting on my waist. I could feel the warmth of his hand through the thin fabric of the dress. My hands gripped the back of his shirt tightly. My legs felt like Jell-O. But I didn't let myself fall. His mouth moved to the sensitive skin by my ear, and he lightly sucked it, causing me to release a breathy moan, which I immediately regretted. Parker growled lowly in my ear. "Does it feel good?" he asked with that same sexy voice he had at the party. His lips grazed my ear as he spoke. I didn't say anything. His lips found my earlobe, and he grazed his teeth against it, causing me to moan again. "Shit, he's getting me back for before." "Tease him, too," Irene suggested. "You're just trying to dig us in a deeper hole." I snapped at her. "Why don't you take control and then just leave to your room?" she asked. I pondered the idea before agreeing to do it. "I guess it will let me get away." Parker licked the side of my neck and then blew lightly on my skin, causing me to shiver. I purposely arched my back so my breast brushed against his chest, and I dug my fingers into his hair, something I've been wanting to do for a long time. I was surprised to find how soft his hair really is. I tugged on his hair, earning another growl from him. "Does it feel good?" I threw his words back at him. He didn't respond like me, which caused me to smirk. I slipped my hand inside of his shirt. Parker stopped assaulting me neck and stiffened as I slowly ran my hand up his stomach and to his chest, relishing the feeling of his muscles tightening under my touch. I savored the feelings of his abs underneath my fingers. I ran my hand up his chest until it rested on his heart, where it was beating quickly, almost the same speed as mine. I pulled my hand out of his shirt and searched for the doorknob while using the other one to trail down his back as he shivered. I pushed the door open and quickly shut it behind me, locking it. I didn't even attempt to see Parker's face. I pressed my ear to my door and listened as the sound of footsteps faded away. I sighed as I walked to my closet and pulled out a pair of sweatpants and a t-shirt and changed into it. I went to the bathroom and scrunched up my nose when I looked at myself in the mirror. My cheeks were flushed and my hair looked wild. My makeup was smudged a little, probably from crying earlier. I cleaned my face and brushed my teeth before climbing into bed and turning my light off. My thoughts wandered to what happened between Parker and I. I frowned at the way my body reacted to Parker's touch. It isn't going to be so easy to avoid him. Fate always finds its way. Chapter 24. I stared at my plate of food and poked at it with a fork. I had lost my appetite when I woke up that morning, and it had hit me like a ton of bricks. Kai was about to rape me. What was his problem? It's as if he knew I was going to be there. I didn't know what to think. He had changed a lot since the last time I saw him. He looked much stronger and well-built. His whole demeanor had changed since high school, and I wouldn't want to see him again. He had an odd aura around him, but I couldn't figure it out. Every time I thought about how weak I was last night, a burst of anger would fill me, and I really wanted to punch someone or something. I didn't like how I couldn't do anything, and something could have happened if Parker hadn't showed up. "Are you okay, Jasmine?" Logan asked as she came into the dining room to check on me. Parker had gotten Logan to prepare meals again and clean the house. I felt bad that she had all of the chores to do that I actually offered to help. She turned my offer down. But me being me, I didn't listen, and I actually helped her around the house. I glanced up from my plate and plastered a fake smile. "Of course I'm fine, just not hungry," I lied as I glanced down at my food and put my fork down. "Okay," she answered, still unsure if I was actually all right. She took my plate of food, but I shook my head at her. "No, I got it." I stood up and took my plate to the kitchen and placed it into the fridge. "I'll just eat it later." I went up to my room and texted some of my friends in hopes that my thoughts would drift away from Kyan. That is how I spent my day. Locked in my room, binge-watching random shows, texting, and eating a jar of Nutella that I had asked Logan to get when she asked if I needed anything. I heard a knock on my door when I scooped some Nutella and put it into my mouth with a spoon. "Come in," I called out with a spoon in my mouth. I glanced away from the TV hanging on the wall and saw Logan standing at the door. I raised my eyebrow at her before looking back at the TV. "Parker wants you in his office at the pack house," she informed me. I turned to her and furrowed my eyebrows. I have never been in the pack house before, and what the hell does Parker even want? I nodded my head at her before she left. I got off my bed and changed into a pair of skinny jeans and a black hoodie. I pulled my hair into a high ponytail and exited my room. I went down the stairs and headed for the front door. Logan wished me luck as I started my way to the pack house. I ran through the forest without shifting because it wasn't that far. I just followed the scent of the pack members. I exited the forest and walked to the pack house. As I passed pack members, they all gave me curious glances. I probably stood out like a sore thumb because I wasn't from their pack. The pack house was huge. It was like a mansion that probably was home to many of the members. I couldn't help but wonder why Parker didn't just live in the pack house. It sure as hell was big enough. I walked up the steps of the pack house and opened the door. I was met by a large hallway that branched off into different rooms. "Hello, miss." A woman who looked like she was in her 60s greeted me. I offered her a smile, which she returned. "Hello," I greeted her. "What is your name?" she asked me while adjusting the apron she was wearing. I shoved my hands into my hoodie pocket. "Jasmine," I answered. "Do you know where Alpha Parker's office is?" The woman's face lit up at the mention of her office. "His office is the door on the left at the end of the hallway," she said as she pointed toward the end of the hallway. I nodded my head and thanked her. My feet carried me down the hallway. More people gave me curious glances, but my mind was wondering what Parker could possibly want. When I reached the door, I took a deep breath before raising my fist and knocked on the door twice. I heard her come in and open the door. I was greeted by a much larger office than the one in Parker's house. Parker's scent filled my nose as I walked farther in. My eyes settled on Parker, who was sitting back in his desk chair. He was wearing a black button-up shirt, but the top two buttons were undone, and the sleeves were rolled up to his elbows. The shirt was clinging to his muscles, making him look even more attractive than he already was. Jasmine, Parker greeted me, snapping me out of my thoughts. Parker was staring at me with a serious look, which caused me to furrow my brows. Xander was standing next to him. He offered me a smile before walking towards the door and closed it behind him as he left. I turned back to Parker and walked over to him. He motioned for me to sit down in the chair facing his desk. I sat down in the chair, not because I was told, but because I wanted to. "What?" I asked, leaning back in the chair. Parker rested his elbows on his desk. His lips were pressed in a thin line, and his jaw was clenched. I actually didn't think he wanted to talk to me after all the teasing yesterday. "Who was that guy last night?" he suddenly asked me. I froze and my eyes widened. I opened and closed my mouth, wanted to say something, but I couldn't. I cleared my throat. "No one. Just some random guy who caught me when I was trying to go to the bathroom." I lied as I dropped my eyes down, avoiding his death stare. "I'm going to ask you again," he said, deathly calm, but his eyes said otherwise. "Who was that guy last night?" I gulped, wanted to tell him the truth, but I lied again. "Like I said, some random guy. I don't know him," I responded, my voice strong. Parker slammed his fist down on the desk. "Damn it, Jasmine. Why won't you tell me the damn truth?" he yelled as he stood up from his chair. I jumped by his sudden loudness. Parker was staring at me with so much anger. His eyes were golden, and I knew that I'd have to tell him the truth. "Why don't you believe me?" I snapped at him. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes. I just watched, waiting for my answer. Why was he acting like that? Maybe he was jealous? Once Parker opened his eyes, they were back to their normal green color. "I heard your conversation," he admitted while raking his fingers through his dark hair. He heard? He did spy on me while I was showering, so I wasn't surprised that he eavesdropped a conversation. I narrowed my eyes at him. "Why?" He sighed. "I followed your scent, and it was with another scent. I wanted to know who you were with. It sounded as if you knew the guy already." "Who is he?" he asked once again. I muttered swear words under my breath before sighing also. "He's my ex." A lump formed in my throat, and I took a deep breath to keep my emotions from showing. Parker didn't say anything. It was silent between us, and I was glad he was done interrogating me. I looked up from my lap to see Parker's eyes soften and look away. "I'm sorry," he muttered quietly. I gaped at him. He was apologizing. He deserves to know what was happening. He did witness it after all. I just didn't know how to tell him, but I knew I should. "You're probably wondering why." "You don't have to dash," Parker started, but I had cut him off. "Kyan was my boyfriend for 3 years. He knew how to make me happy. I had a lot of friends and a perfect boyfriend throughout high school. He knew how to treat me right. He made me laugh. I guess I was just blind. Turns out those 3 years I gave him meant nothing to him." I paused to look at Parker, who was watching me. His eyes held a strange emotion that I couldn't decipher. I decided to continue. The summer before senior year of high school, Kyan had been acting strange. He would get touchy and try to kiss me at every chance he could get. Of course me, being so naive and oblivious, didn't think anything of it. All my friends knew what was up except Serena and Anthony. I had told Kyan that I was a werewolf because he was with me when I had my first shift. He didn't seem all that shocked that werewolves existed, but like I said before, I was too oblivious. I know now that his brother is a werewolf, but he isn't one. He didn't smell like a werewolf. Kyan and I were coming back from a date which was laser tag. We started kissing, so I thought it was just a normal makeout session. Things got a little heated, so I tried stopping. Kyan had other ideas. He knew I was going to refuse, so he had brought ropes with silver in it, similar to the ones he used last night. He used my weakness against me and took advantage of me that night. I lost 3 things that night: my virginity, my boyfriend, and my dignity. After that day, I was constantly harassed by Kyan, his friends who used to be mine, and his brother. My life was all screwed up. I started partying and drinking, so I forget. I get drunk and do things that I constantly regret doing. I'm not pure, Parker. I'm afraid of commitment, and I don't want to get hurt again. That is why I used to do one-night flings, because then I wouldn't have to deal with falling in love and then having my heart being used over and over again, continuously breaking. I took a breath. Now tears were leaking out of my eyes. That is why I never wanted a mate. I confess, my voice barely above a whisper. I looked up, meeting Parker's eyes. I still couldn't tell what he was thinking. I decided I should probably finish what I had to say before leaving. I rejected you because I don't want to relive my past. I want someone to love me, not because just my body, but all of me. I guess that's so hard to ask for. I quickly wiped my tears away with the sleeve of my hoodie. I stood up in the chair and plastered a fake smile. "Thank you for listening," I said before turning on my heel. I heard Parker call my name, but I didn't turn around. I didn't want him to see me cry like last night. Crying is a sign of weakness. I felt arms snake around my body, pulling me into a hard chest. Parker turned to face him, but I kept my head down. "Look at me," he said softly. He whispered the last part. "Please?" I didn't look up. Instead, I kept my head down. So badly wanted to look up. He gently tilted my head up so I'd look at him. I looked into his eyes, which were swirling with emotion, sadness being one of them. My eyes were glassy with tears. He used the pads of his thumbs to wipe away my tears. I was shocked by this action. Why is he being so nice to me? I thought he would call me pathetic or something. "I'm sorry," I mumbled. "I shouldn't be crying like this." It's okay to cry. It's not a sign of weakness. It is a sign that you've been trying to be strong for too long. Everyone needs a cry sometimes. Some words aren't meant to be spoken. Parker whispered. I thought about his words. He is right, though, and it seems as if he's speaking from experience. Kyan is an asshole, Parker stated, his eyes now swirling with anger. I know I'm an asshole, but what he did is despicable. Next time I see him, I'm killing him. His brother, too, along with all his friends. He then looked down toward the space in between us, or what little space is left. He then looked back up and gulped, his Adam's apple bobbing. My eyes followed the action. "I'm sorry for what I said to you," he apologized. He looked like he regretted it, and his eyes held guilt within them. "There is no excuse for what I said, and I'm regretting everything. I shouldn't have treated you like that. No mate deserves that. I deserve the rejection as well. I don't even know why I did it, and it's killing me knowing that I did something like that." I stared at him, not knowing what to say. Of course, I'm not going to forgive him that quickly, but I couldn't help but wonder if he was truly sorry. "I'm not asking you to forgive me, but just know that I really am sorry," he finished as he brushed his thumbs on my cheeks. The warmth of his hands that were cupping my face was soothing. I nodded my head, completely out of words, as we just stared at each other. A knock on the door caused us to snap out of our trance. "What?" Parker called out. "Alpha, you are late for your meeting." A male voice responded. I recognized it as Xander's voice. Parker swore under his breath before taking a step away from me. He offered me a small smile. I gaped at him. It was the first time I had seen him smile, and let me just say, it was beautiful. I returned the smile before moving toward the door and opening it. Xander was waiting outside like I suspected. He bowed his head. Luna. I just smiled at him, even though he called me by that title. I couldn't help but wonder if things were now going to be different between Parker and I, or if it was just a spur of the moment. For some reason, I actually wanted us to be normal. Deep down, some part of me wanted us to be normal mates, but I didn't know if it could be that simple. Chapter 25. I walked away from Parker's office and back down the hallway. Before I got to the door, opened revealing a tall girl, long blonde hair. She had on white skinny jeans, a denim jacket, and a light pink crop top. To top it off, she was wearing white killer heels that I probably would trip wearing. She was laughing with the girl next to her, who had chestnut-colored hair. Their eyes landed on me, and I offered them a smile. They both returned it, but it seemed forced to the blonde one. "Hey, you don't seem familiar," the girl with chestnut-colored hair spoke up. She was wearing blue skinny jeans and a white tank top with a black jacket. "No, I'm not," I said. The blonde girl looked bored, so I just focused on the other girl. She stuck out her hand and introduced herself. "I'm Chloe." "Jasmine," I responded, shaking her hand. The blonde girl's head snapped towards me and narrowed her eyes. I frowned at her, not really understanding why she was looking at me like she wanted to kill me. I didn't do anything. Chloe elbowed her, making her scowl. She rolled her eyes before introducing herself. "I'm Stephanie, Parker's mate." She smirked at the end. I felt my eyes widen at the last part of her sentence. So this girl thinks Parker's her mate. I rolled my eyes and felt a smirk form on my face. This bitch thinks she'll get a reaction out of me. I don't think so. "Nice to meet you," I said, faking a smile. She looked taken aback that I didn't say anything. She opened and closed her mouth before frowning at me. I raised an eyebrow at her, taunting her. She was about to say something, but voices from down the hall cut her off. Stephanie's face lit up as she glanced over my shoulder. I looked behind me and saw Parker and Xander coming down the hall. She walked past me and over to Parker. "Parker," she shrieked, and then tossed a smirk over her shoulder that was directed towards me. My eyes fell on Parker, who was wincing at the sound of her voice. "What?" He snapped at her. He looked annoyed. She snaked her arms around his neck, which caused Irene to growl. I frowned, not liking the fact that another female was touching him. Of course it was just the mate bond speaking, but still. "Don't touch me," he hissed as he tried to get out of her grasp. I tried to hide my laugh as I bit the inside of my cheek. She gave him puppy dog eyes. "But baby, I bought the cutest pair of lingerie for you," she said seductively while fluttering her eyelashes. She tried to lean in to kiss him, but he leaned away from her. He cringed before looking my way. I was glaring daggers at Stephanie's back. He smirked at me before trying to push Stephanie away. She clung to him like one of those annoying flies that never seem to go away. "I'll be ready tonight like always." She winked at him. His nose flared as he clenched his fists. He looked like he wanted to beat the shit out of her. "What the hell are you yapping about?" He growled out. He pushed her away before walking toward the door. I let out a small laugh at the look on Stephanie's face as Parker stopped in front of me. The anger that was once on his face was now gone. "I'll see you later," he said to me loud enough so Stephanie heard him too. There was a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. I looked past Parker to her and smirked at her. She was fuming, and if looks could kill, I would be 6 feet under. "Okay," I said, nodding. He then turned and headed out the door with Xander following in tow. I watched as the door closed. I jumped when a hand roughly grabbed my wrist and jerked me around. I was met with Stephanie, who looked like she wanted to murder me. "What's your problem?" I snapped at her. She crossed her arms. "My problem is that you're trying to steal my mate away from me." I let out a laugh, which was followed by more. I continued laughing and wiped a non-existent tear away from my face. "That's gold." You think Parker's your mate? Clearly, he didn't want to be near you. She made a move to slap me, but I dodged her hand. Her eyes widened a little before returning to her normal scowl. You bitch. I smirked at her. I may be a bitch, but find your own mate, I retorted before turning on my heel and exited the pack house. I couldn't help but feel proud of myself. I decided to go to Starbucks to treat myself. Had he slept with her before? I'm going to rip that bitch's head off, Irene muttered inside my head. I rolled my eyes mentally at her. Of course she would. I mean, I wouldn't complain if she did. I walked on the sidewalk past members, and cars were driving on the street. Parker had a pretty big pack, I could tell. I passed by many different stores. Food stores, clothes, books, you name it. The cold fall air blew past me, causing my cheeks to feel numb. I shivered and was glad that I had decided to wear a hoodie. I reached Starbucks and opened the door. I went to the counter and ordered myself a pumpkin spice latte, /N. I have never been to Starbucks before to get coffee, so I don't know whether this is good or not. After getting a drink, I took a seat at one of the tables by the window. As I drank my drink and checked my social media on my phone, I couldn't help but feel as if I was being watched. I glanced up from my phone and glanced around the place. No one was looking at me, so I just shrugged and went back to my phone. After a few minutes, a voice spoke. Hey! I looked up and smiled at the familiar person. Hi, Winter, I greeted her. I gestured for her to sit down, which she happily did. What's up? I asked her. The grin on her face said it all. I raised an eyebrow at her. My eyes then settled on her neck, and a smirk played on my lips. Xander marked you? I asked, already knowing the answer. Her cheeks tinged red, and she nodded. Yeah, he did. She then started going into detail about how it happened and what it felt like to be marked. It starts out painful, but then it feels amazing. It's so hard to describe it. It's so pleasurable, better than the mating part. She finished her story. From the look on her face, I knew she was happy. She then gave me her full attention. I gave her a questioning look as I took a sip of my coffee. Have you and Parker marked each other or have had sex yet? She asked. My eyes widened as I started choking on my coffee. Way to be blunt about it. I shook my head once I recovered. No. Her brows furrowed at my response. Why not? She asked. It's unusual for mates to not at least start the mating process as long since they've met. Usually they complete it within the week they met. It's been longer than a week for you guys. I looked down at the cup in my hands. I rejected him. I muttered as I took another sip of my drink. I looked back up to see Winter staring at me with her eyes wide. You rejected him? What did he do? I glanced out the window and watched people walk by. I watched as couples walked to each other and pups running around. He doesn't want me, only my body. I don't want commitment, I stated before adding quietly. At least I thought I didn't. I sighed, not really knowing what I wanted anymore. My life was too complicated and screwed up. I would kill to have a normal life. Give it some time, Jasmine. I'm sure he'll realize what he's missing, and being with a mate is the best feeling in the world, Winter assured me. I nodded my head, not wanting to say anything. We continued chatting until the sun was already beginning to set. We said our goodbyes, and I headed back to Parker's house. As I walked, I couldn't help but feel as if I was being watched once again. I stopped walking and looked around, but saw nothing just like before. Shrugging the feeling away, I finished the trip to the house. I walked to the driveway and unlocked the front door, meaning Parker wasn't back yet. The house empty and quiet. I walked into the hallway and furrowed my eyebrows when I caught the dining room light on. I walked into the room and felt my body stiffen. My eyes settled on a plate that had fettuccine alfredo with chicken, garlic bread, and salad. It smelled delicious. I didn't even realize I was hungry until I smelled it. There was a glass of wine and a rose next to the plate. Slowly, I walked over to the chair and sat down, unsure whether or not the food was for me. I picked up the fork that laid next to the plate and took a bite of the pasta. I felt as if I was in food heaven. Fettuccine Alfredo was now my new favorite food. Just kidding. Nutella would always be my favorite. This was definitely coming second. Damn, this is good, I muttered under my breath as I took another bite. I then took a bite of the garlic bread. I quickly polished off my plate within minutes. I drank the wine before picking up my empty plate and carrying it to the kitchen to be washed. Once washed, I put away and went back to the dining room to get the rose. I picked it up and went to my room. After I put the rose with the other three, I turned my TV on and started watching whatever was on. I was busy watching TV and eating some Twizzlers I had stolen from the kitchen a couple days before when I heard a knock on my door. I got up from the position on my bed and went to the door, opening it. Parker was standing there. He looked nervous. I raised an eyebrow as if waiting for him to say something. He rubbed his hands on his jeans, looking past me and into my room. I couldn't help but gaze at his appearance. There was no doubt that he was hot, definitely the hottest man I've ever seen. He had a 5 o'clock shadow, meaning he hasn't shaved yet, and I so badly want to run my fingers over it. His hair was tousled, as if he ran his fingers through it multiple times, which he probably had. Don't even let me get started on his muscles. How was your dinner? He finally asked as he looked back at me. It was really good. Thank you. I'll also thank Logan the next time I see her, I said while leaning against the door frame. Parker's face fell. Oh. I furrowed my eyebrows at his sudden change in mood. What? I asked curiously. He frowned at me for a moment before responding, Logan didn't make it. I did. I felt my eyes widen. He can cook? What other hidden secrets does he have that would surprise me? You can cook, I asked while raising an eyebrow. He nodded his head, and I could faintly see pink tingeing his cheeks. Is he blushing? About earlier? He trailed off. He glanced at me for a moment before continuing. I'm sorry I forced you to tell me that. It wasn't any of my business, but I wanted to know who that guy was because if I hadn't shown up... He trailed off again. I sighed. It's fine. I waved it off like it was nothing even though I was lying. It wasn't fine. I spilled a whole part of my life to him, and I don't really even know him except for the fact that he was my mate that I rejected. He nodded his head, but I knew that he knew I was lying, but he didn't say anything. He made a move to speak, but I cut him off. What are you doing? I asked. He furrowed his eyebrows at me, clearly confused. Standing here, I rolled my eyes at him. I mean, why are you doing this? Acting like you care, I asked bitterly. I crossed my arms over my chest. Parker just stared at me, opening and closing his mouth, not knowing what to say. I do care, he finally said. I scowled at him. Didn't seem like it before. I snapped at him. He narrowed his eyes at me and clenched his jaw. His face was void from any emotions except the anger that was clearly visible. I apologized. I know you haven't forgiven me, but I regret it. He spoke angrily as he ran his hand through his hair. You rejected me anyways. Am I not allowed to at least try to get you back? I rejected you because I don't deserve you, Parker. I made so many mistakes in my past. You know I rejected you, so I don't relive my past. I already told you, because of what you said made me so sure of my decision. Just because you apologized doesn't make it okay. It doesn't make my fears disappear. I gave you my reason. What's yours? I spat at him. I made a move to slam my door in his face, but he stopped the door with his foot. He then stepped into my room and slammed the door shut behind him. Fear coursed through me as I took in his expression. He looked beyond livid and looked like he wanted to kill someone. I gulped as I took an unconscious step back when he took a step forward. "Everyone I ever loved was ripped away from me," he growled out, "all except my twin sister." He took another step towards me, and I stepped back again. "All I need is for my mate to be gone, and then I wouldn't know what to do. Not only does my pack need a Luna, I need a Luna. There is nothing that can explain my previous actions except for the fact that I don't know how to love." His voice was deadly and low. He wasn't raising it anymore, but there was so much feeling behind his words. I have never received love from anyone but my sister and my pack, but that was only after I became alpha. I had no words. I didn't know what to say except furrow my brows in confusion. Next thing I knew, Parker was pulling his shirt off. I felt my eyes widen as I took in his muscles. My eyes danced over the beautiful tattoos going up his left side and the few on his arm. I stared in awe at his yummy muscles that I so badly wanted to touch. "Snap out of it, Jasmine. Don't." Irene purred as she took in Parker's appearance. I did snap out of it when he turned around, his back facing me. A gasp escaped my lips as my eyes took in the scars on his back. I stepped towards him and reached out to gently touch the scars. He stiffened when my fingers came in contact with his skin. A jolt of electricity went through my fingers. I traced each one with my index finger, causing him to shiver. "What happened?" I whispered, not really wanting to find out, but couldn't stop myself from asking. "My father," he said coldly. "Your father did this?" "W.I." I was nauseated at the thought of someone doing this to someone else, especially their own child. He let out a sigh before turning towards me. Sadness and anger were swirling in his eyes. "Because it's my fault my mother was killed." Chapter 26. Song Unsteady by Ex-Ambassadors. W what? I stared at him. His mother is dead? I couldn't imagine what it would be like to have a parent who is dead. Hell, I couldn't even imagine what it would be like to have anyone you know dead. "She's gone." His voice cracked. Guilt swirled in his eyes as he added, "And it's all my fault." "What happened?" I asked quietly. He stared at Mai for a moment before gesturing for Mai to sit down on the bed next to him. I did just that. I watched as his atoms apple bobbed up and down as he swallowed. He didn't look at me, but stared at my window. I was 14 years old when my mom died. My family was close to each other. My parents would take Peyton and I to get ice cream all the time when we were kids. We went to beach, park, you name it, we did it. My life was perfect. My father was alpha, and everyone loved him. My mother was a perfect Luna, so kind and beautiful. Everyone loved her. One day my pack was attacked by a group of hunters who had an alliance with rogues. They had a goal to get rid of all the strongest packs. I was with my mom at the time of the attack. I remember it perfectly. My mother was saying goodnight to me, and a man had broken through my window and held a gun to her head. It was a gun with silver bullets. Before I could even get out of my bed to defend my mom, she was dead. He squeezed his eyes shut at the memory. I can still hear the sound of her screaming and the sound of the gun going off. I was completely silent, listening to his story. I didn't want to show him pity, because I know that's probably the last thing he wanted. I know I didn't like the pity looks I received from Serena and my family when they had found out about Kyan. "It's not your fault." I began, but Parker cut me off. It was damn well fault. If I was quick enough, she would still be alive. My father wouldn't have blamed me for her death and began abusing me. I had to deal with it until I was able to get strong enough to defend myself. He ended up killing himself. Some of the pack members blamed me for their Luna's death. Hell, I don't even know if some of them still blame me to this day. He raised his voice. He clenched his fists and his jaw. He took a deep breath. After he killed himself, I became closed off from any emotion. I became harsh and cruel, even when Peyton tried to comfort me. I guess you could say I was a mommy's boy and took her death a lot harder than she did. I was so closed off not even my beta or delta were capable of bringing me back. I regret a lot of things I've done. If I had a chance to go back in time to change everything, I would. He leaned forward and buried his face in his hands. I got off the bed and kneeled in front of him, pulling his hands away from his face. His eyes were glassy, and I felt as if someone was stabbing me in the stomach repeatedly. I didn't know what to say to him. I was afraid that anything I could say would make him angry, or wouldn't be the right thing to say. Instead, I cupped his face and wiped his tears away with the pads of my thumbs like he had done for me. I tried to ignore the shocks and warmth running through me as I touched him, but it was so hard to ignore. Parker pulled me onto his lap, so I was facing him. He balled the back of my shirt in his fists as he buried his face into my hair. I sat there shocked at what he was doing. Slowly, I wrapped my arms around his neck and rubbed his back with one hand while the other was combing through his hair. I was overwhelmed by his scent and couldn't help but smile that he had finally opened up to me and I had let him. I didn't know if the moment we were having would change anything between us. For some reason, I hoped that it did. I should probably go finish with some pack work, Parker said after a while of just silence. I nodded and slowly got off from his lap. He stood up from my bed and retrieved his shirt, not bothering to put it back on. I watched as he walked toward my door and opened it. All I could do was stare at the huge scars on his back as he closed the door behind him. I stood in my spot for a few moments before heading to my bathroom to take a shower. The next day, I found myself going to the training field. I couldn't help but wonder how Parker's pack trained. I definitely wanted to train. It's one of the things I enjoy doing. I approached the field and noticed the track surrounding it. I watched as members practice fighting in human and wolf form. I was amazed at how good they actually were. I noticed Parker standing and talking to a really buff guy that had messy dark brown hair. He was shirtless and had a few tattoos. I walked over to Parker, who narrowed his eyes when he saw me. Once I reached him, he spoke. "What are you doing here?" The other guy, however, was smirking when he saw me. "To watch your pack train. What else?" I retorted as I watched the pair closest to us. He frowned at me. "You shouldn't be here." It was my turn to frown. "Why not?" I already knew what was coming. He was probably going to tell me I couldn't train even though I already have. There were girls training here already, and it wouldn't make sense that I couldn't. Ignoring Parker, I turned to the other guy. "Are you the trainer here?" I asked him. He nodded his head, and I sent him a smile. "Is it okay if I start to train tomorrow?" "Of course. Training starts at 8 in the morning." I thanked him before he walked off, leaving me with Parker, who was glaring at me. So I guess the night before didn't change anything. "What?" I asked, sparing him a glance out of the corner of the eyes. "Am I not allowed to train just like everybody else? Because whether you like it or not, I will train." Parker ignored me, which caused me to roll my eyes. "Next week on Friday, I'm going to visit my old pack." I informed him so he knows and won't get all mad at me. I wanted to spend my birthday with my family. He turned to me and crossed his arms over his chest. He tilted his head to the side. "Why?" "I want to see my family. I miss them a lot," I said, quietly looking down at the ground. I really did miss them. I miss my twin sisters talking about random stuff to me and asking me to take them to see a movie or something. I miss my brother asking advice about girls and other personal problems. I also miss the way my mom would always get mad at my dad, and whenever she'd catch us sneaking some of the dish she had made for a packed barbecue. He nodded his head slowly. "Okay, you can see them on Saturday." I frowned at him. "Why not Friday?" I asked. Whatever hope I had into spending my birthday with my family disappeared. "Because I said so," he said sternly. "I'll call up Alpha Brian and let him know you will be visiting." I narrowed my eyes at him and stepped closer to him, so I was jabbing my finger into his chest. I can visit them whenever I want and you can't stop me. He took a step closer to me, so we were standing chest to chest. My emotions became twisted as all I could feel was the warmth of his body overwhelming me, and Irene wanted me to kiss him. I kept my face angry, though, so he doesn't know that he's having an effect on me. His eyes swirl with lust as he stared down at me. I can and I will make you stay here with me, he said lowly. He then leaned down to my ear. I'll be sure of it. He then stepped back and started to chat with other people, leaving me there alone. So what are you doing next week on Friday? Peyton asked me. I raised an eyebrow at her before shrugging. I'm going to visit my family, I answered despite what Parker had said earlier. Oh, I was going to ask if you want to go to a party with me, she said. The smile on her face had faltered. I sighed. I'm done with parties. I muttered under my breath. It's just going to be the pack, she added. It'll be fun, I promise you that. She looked so excited at the mention of it. I didn't know what to say because I really wanted to see my family, but I guess it couldn't hurt to see them the day after. I was confused, though, on why both Parker and Peyton were trying to keep me here. I didn't want to think too much of it, so I shrugged. Fine, I'll go, but just for an hour, I sighed. Peyton grinned at me, and so did the other girls. Peyton, Riley, Kennedy, Vivian, Winter, Logan, and I were all chilling in the theater room of the pack house. There were rows of automatic leather recliners. Some of us were sitting on bean bags closer to the screen. Speakers surrounded the screen and were scattered around the room to give amazing sound. The room was pretty huge and perhaps one of my favorite rooms in the pack house, along with the ginormous kitchen. I had invited Winter and Logan to join us because I had met them before meeting the others, and I considered them my friends. The girls seemed to like them too. I smiled at how well they were all getting along. Winter already knew Vivian because she was Xander's sister. We were currently watching random movies. At the moment, we were watching Twilight and commenting what was right and what was wrong about the movie. It was quite fun, actually. They even got the size right, which was a shocker. We all turned our heads to the door when we heard it open. Xander and Jonas were standing there with furrowed eyebrows. What's going on in here? Xander asked. And why weren't we invited? Jonas added afterwards. We all laughed at them. Unless you don't like Twilight, you can join us, Winter piped up. A grin formed on Xander's face at the voice of his mate. He walked over to her and placed a kiss on her forehead, which caused all of us to coo at them. Winter's cheeks were tinged pink when he plopped down next to her and pulled her onto his lap. Yeah, as long as you don't start making out in the middle of the movie, Kennedy commented from her spot. We all laughed again as both of them started blushing. None of the girls except Winter and I had found our mates. The other girls had yet to find them along with Jonas. A few minutes later, Parker walked into the room. No one turned to look this time, except me, because I was able to smell him before he even walked into the room. Hey, brother, come join us. Peyton spoke without glancing away from the large screen. I watched out of the corner of my eyes as Parker took a seat next to me. I cursed myself for sitting in the back where there was an open seat next to me. No making out for you two either. Kennedy called from one of the bean bags in the front. I felt my cheeks warm up while everyone laughed at us. I glanced at Parker through the corner of my eyes and noticed a small smirk playing on his lips. I scowled but didn't say anything. No promises, Parker muttered under his breath, and I was the only one who heard him. A fluttery feeling filled me at the thought of Parker and I kissing. I brushed all those feelings away immediately and scolded myself. However, what little sense of me turning on Parker was able to smell it, and I noticed him stiffen beside me. No one else noticed, though. Stop it, Parker whispered angrily from beside me. Stop what? I asked, raising an eyebrow at him. Playing it cool. He glared at me. "You and I both know what," he whispered back. I suppressed a laugh dryly. "And you and I both know that you wouldn't want me to stop." He shot me another glare, earning a smirk from me as I faced forward. I felt a hand on my thigh, making my breath hitch. The hand started moving higher and higher. "What are you doing?" I hissed at Parker. He just smirked and moved his hand to the inner side. The warmth of his hand sent shocks through my body. I involuntarily squeezed my legs together, trapping his hand there. His smirk widened as he pulled his hand away. I noticed the lust swirling in his eyes, and I gulped. He then leaned over so his face was inches away from mine, his fresh breath hitting my face. You wouldn't want to stop either. Chapter 27. It was currently Thursday of the following week. So far I had received 6 more roses. Each one I found every night on my pillow. I didn't know why Parker was giving them to me, and I brought it up once, but he didn't acknowledge the question. I had showed up for training every morning and actually learned quite a few new things. I even got closer with the girls. We would all hang out every day. Today we were actually going to go buy dresses for tomorrow night's party, which I was dreading. Everyone was acting strange, though, even Parker. Peyton had said that the party was going to be a bit more formal and not as crazy as the other party we went to. I walked down the sidewalk, looking for the store Peyton had told me to meet her at once I was finished cleaning up after training. It was a dress store, but was different from the last store we went to. I opened the door of the store and was greeted by the smell of perfume and laundry detergent. Peyton waved me over when I spotted her and the girls standing by a rack of dresses. "Hey!" I greeted her and she greeted me back. We all began to search for dresses. I looked through many racks and saw quite a few that I liked, but either it wasn't my color or in my size. After about an hour, Riley and I were the only ones still looking for a dress, while the others were buying shoes and trying their dresses on. "Red is your color," I said to her while observing a red dress. It was cute, strapless, and flowed out ending above the knees. It was simple, yet beautiful. She turned to look at me, and I held the dress out to her. A grin appeared on her face as she took the dress and observed it. How did I not see this before? She asked before squealing and hugging the dress. "Thank you." She then looked back at me. "We need to find you a dress, preferably a black one. You look sexy in black, and I think Alpha thinks so, too." I hadn't really talked to him at all this past week. I think what we had before. I nodded to Riley, and we continued looking for a dress for me. After 20 more minutes of searching, I had found a dress. The waist and up was black. It had a boat neckline and was strapless, but had long sleeves. The skirt portion was white and flowing. It ended mid-thigh and had black trim around the edge. It wasn't a dress I would usually wear, but it was cute. I picked out a pair of black heels and went with Riley to pay for them and joined the other girls at Starbucks, our usual hangout place. "Did you find a dress?" Vivian asked as we approached the table all 6 of them were at. Peyton handed me a coffee, which I gladly accepted. I nodded while sitting the bag with my dressing on the floor. "I'm so excited for the party." Peyton gushed. The girls agreed. I, on the other hand, didn't know whether to be excited or nervous. "Where is it taking place?" I asked curiously. Kennedy looked at me and responded, "It's going to be held in the training field." I nodded, already familiar with the location. We all finished up at Starbucks and headed to the pack house, all deciding to watch a movie. Jonas and Xander usually joined us when we were watching movies. Movie night was usually Saturday, but we'd always have an unplanned one during the week. "You can choose a movie, Jamie," Logan offered. The girls had started calling me by my nickname, and I couldn't help but feel more at home. "Let's watch Hunger Games," I answered as I glanced down at my phone when it vibrated. "Anthony 7:29 p.m. Why aren't you coming to visit tomorrow?" I sighed as I typed a response. "Me 7:30 p.m. My friends wanted me to stay for a party tomorrow night. Anthony was quick to respond. Anthony, 7:30 p.m. Can't you go to a party any other night? We all miss you, and you've never spent your birthday away from home. It's kind of a tradition. I could basically feel the disappointment in his text, and I couldn't help but feel bad. He was right, though. I had never spent my birthday away from being there, and we'd all usually want to play laser tag. Serena and Anthony would always call it a tradition. Me, 7:32 p.m. I'm sorry, but this party is very important to them for some reason that I'm still trying to figure out. I'll be visiting Saturday. Anthony, 7:34 p.m. Okay, I'll be looking forward to it. Princess. Anyways, I've got to go. My dad is so annoying, uneasy face. Me, 7:35 p.m. Don't get into too much trouble. Anthony, 7:35 p.m. No promises, winky face. I put my phone in my pocket and tuned into the movie. I rolled my eyes as the girls made comments about Josh Hutcherson. I'm here, you know. Xander called out as Winter made a comment about Josh being cute. I laughed when Winter smirked. That still doesn't change the fact that he is cute, she pointed out, which earned a scoff from him. After watching 2 movies, I left the pack house and headed back to Parker's house. Parker hadn't gotten back yet. I noticed he's usually back by 11. I went to the kitchen and decided to make ramen noodles because I couldn't cook shit. After boiling the water, I put the raw noodles and seasoning into the pot. Once it was cooked, I put it into a bowl and started eating at the bar. I checked my phone when I was done eating, and it was about 10:30. After washing my dishes and putting them away, I decided to watch TV since it wasn't too late, and there was no need to get up early the next morning because training was canceled. Why is there never anything good on? I muttered to myself while flipping through the channels. I stopped on a random one, not really caring what was playing. Minutes passed, which soon turned to hours, and I was starting to doze off. The sound of the front door opening and closing woke me up. Was Parker just getting back? Parker appeared in the doorway of the room. His hair was disheveled. His clothes looked wrinkled and looked exhausted and tired. Why are you still up? I blinked as he stared at me expectantly with those green eyes. Watching TV, I said as I pointed toward the TV. He nodded his head before walking out of the room and up the stairs. Slowly and carefully, I slipped from his grasp and left his room before going back to mine. I changed into dark blue skinny jeans, a t-shirt, and a hoodie. I grabbed my phone and raised my eyebrows when I saw all the texts. Serena, 10:27 a.m. Happy birthday, bitch winky face. Anthony, 10:32 a.m. Happy birthday, princess. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. I've got your present. Peyton, 10:46 a.m. Another year older. Are you and Parker planning some birthday sex? I laughed at Peyton's text. I had some more texts from Jonas, Xander, Logan, Winter, Kennedy, Vivian, Riley, my parents, siblings, and other friends and family members. I replied all of them before locking my phone and going downstairs to find myself some breakfast. I halted at the dining room, my brows furrowed at the sight of the dishes, sitting on the middle of the table, and it smelled delicious. I walked into the room and noticed that the plates were sitting out across each other, with eating utensils with them. There was a plate at my usual spot. Take a seat, a voice said from behind me. I jumped from the closeness and turned around to face Parker. I raised an eyebrow at him. What's all this for? I asked curiously as I looked back at the table. He shrugged before pulling my chair out and gestured for me to take a seat. A rose laid on my plate along with a note. Unsure what to think, I cautiously took a seat. He pushed the chair in which had taken me aback by the sweet gesture. I watched Parker take his seat across from me. I picked up the note which read, Happy birthday, my sweet Rose. I looked up from the note to see Parker's cheeks tinge pink. Before I could make a comment about it, he gestured towards the food. "Help yourself, there is plenty." Nodding, I served myself some food. There was scrambled eggs with cheese on it, hash brown casserole, bacon, and sausages. I silently began eating as he served himself. We didn't say a word to each other, and all could be heard was the sound of our forks hitting the plates. I drank the last bit of the orange juice before taking my last bite of the eggs. "Thank you," I spoke as I stood up taking my dishes with me. Parker stood up also. "I got it," he told me as he approached me and took the dishes from me. I was about to protest, but he pressed his finger to my lips. "Sure," he shushed me. "You complain too much." I gaped at him as he left the room with both of our dishes. I unconsciously wiped my mouth with the sleeve of my hoodie and moved around the table to pick up the leftovers. I brought them to the kitchen and noticed Parker washing the dishes. Parker got out a container and helped me put the leftovers away. "I'm going to party later with the girls," I informed him as I put the container in the fridge. He nodded. "I know." I furrowed my eyebrows at him, and he rolled his eyes. "Peyton told me." "Oh," was my only answer as I turned to face him fully. We both just stared at each other stupidly. Lust and was clear at his eyes, and I shifted on my foot, clearing my throat awkwardly. He blinked before turning to leave. "I have to take care of some packed business," he muttered, and I watched his retreating back. "I'll see you later." I didn't bother saying anything back, but leaned against the kitchen counter, deep in thought. I was getting ready for the party. Peyton had texted me, saying that she and the girls would meet me there. She had also said that I should be there at 6:30. I changed into my dress, loosely curled my hair, and applied the makeup that Peyton had suggested I wear. When I was finished, I checked the time, seeing that it was already 6 o'clock. Picking up my house keys and phone, I left the house and made my way to the training field. It was quiet, and no one was walking around. It was weird. "Something is definitely up," Irene muttered, and I agreed with her. As I neared the field, I could hear music filling the late November air. It was beautiful out, but why the hell would they plan a party outdoors? It's freezing out. Shit, I forgot a jacket. When I reached the field, I gaped at the setup. A large tent stood in the middle of it and had a stage with a DJ set up on it. There was a dance floor in the middle of the tent, while tables surrounded it. Long tables held many different foods that smell amazing. Colorful balloons, torches, and lanterns were lined up around the tent. This didn't seem like a party where people would get drunk. In fact, there were kids running around. My eyes skimmed the crowd until they landed on Peyton and the girls. I made my way over to them, and they turned to me, smiling. I raised an eyebrow at them, and their grins widened. "Happy birthday." They squealed as they all hugged me. Chapter 28. "Wait, I'm confused," I said after the girls pulled away. "It's a surprise birthday party. How are you confused?" Peyton asked. "A surprise birthday party?" Well, that explained the balloons and the banner that said, "Happy Birthday." I started at them not knowing what to say. They had planned a party for me. "Wow, they're good. Why?" I asked as I looked around, a smile forming on my face matching the girls. It was Alpha's idea. Riley piped in. It was Kennedy's turn to add something, but we did the planning. He did make suggestions, though. It was Parker's idea? Was that the reason why he didn't want me to go pack to my pack? I felt a strange feeling flow through my body, and I didn't know why. Did he care? The girls pulled me onto the dance floor, and we all started dancing. I was greeted by many other pack members who wished me a happy birthday. I honestly didn't know how to respond to all of it. "Wake Up" by the Vamps played loudly on the speakers. I definitely was impressed by the setup. The girls had really outdone themselves. I hadn't seen Parker at all. I was currently at the food table, filling a plate up with mostly desserts. I sat down at an empty table and began eating. I slowly stopped eating when I felt eyes on me. Looking up from my plate, my eyes looked with green ones. Parker was leaning against a table, and someone was talking to him, but his eyes were on me. His hair was tame but still looked good, and his jaw was clean-shaved. He had on a black button-up shirt with the sleeves rolled up and a pair of dark blue jeans. His gaze was intense. As his eyes observed me, he turned to the person talking to him and said something before walking towards me. I looked back down at my plate and continued eating. It was then he reached my table when he cleared his throat. I glanced up at him. He was leaning against the table with his arms crossed over his muscular chest. I gave him a small smile, and a look of surprise took over his features. "Thank you," I said as I took the last bite of the Nutella brownie that I was holding. "For what?" Parker asked, looking confused. I gestured around us. "For this," I responded. "It's amazing, especially the food." He nodded his head while scratching the back of his neck and looked at the ground. I narrowed my eyes at his face, and that's when I realized his cheeks were pink. "Are you blushing?" I blurted out. His cheeks became even more red, and I smirked. "You are." I unconsciously lifted my hands up and pinched his cheeks. He glared at me and swatted my hands away. "No, I'm not." I continued smirking at him as I picked up my trash to throw it away. He followed me when I went to the trash can. I felt a presence behind me as warmth took over my body. "You look beautiful," Parker whispered in my ear. His fingers teased with the top of the dress. "I especially like this," he said as he traced his long finger over my open shoulder. I shivered at the trail of heat he left on my skin. "Thanks." I managed out. I stepped away from him. "Let's go dance," I said to bring our mind from what just happened. "Depends. Are you in dry hump again?" he asked as I started walking towards the dance floor. I felt my cheeks heat up, and I scoffed. "No, of course not." He chuckled at me. "Why not?" I enjoyed it. He joked, but I could tell there was some seriousness to it. My cheeks heated up even more, and I cursed under my breath. "I suddenly don't feel like dancing anymore," I muttered. As I was about to head somewhere else, Parker grabbed my wrist and dragged me back to the dance floor. The Hills by the Weekend was playing loudly. Parker slid his arms around my waist and pulled my flushed against his body. "Think you can dance to this song?" he asked with a teasing smirk playing on his lips. Deciding to tease him, I returned the smirk and ran a finger down his chest, stopping at his stomach. My other finger hooked around the collar of his shirt. "I don't know, can I?" "Let's find out," he suggested as his hands moved downwards and his eyes darkened. I chuckled as I grabbed his hands and put them back around my waist. He tried moving his hands down again, but I stepped away, smirking at him. "You're not getting any of this," I said while motioning toward my body. Parker's eyes drank me in, and they became darker. He growled lowly as he took a step towards me and grabbed my arm, pulling me towards him. "I want you so damn badly," he said darkly and pressed himself against me so I could feel how badly he wanted me. I swallowed as he lifted my hand and pressed it against his chest. His heart was beating erratically. His breath fanned my face. "Every single part of you." His lips were so close to mine, and I had the urge to kiss them. My heart was beating as quick as Parker's, maybe even faster. I didn't know what I wanted, but a big part of me wanted him too. I don't know what changed. Was it because I had finally opened up and Parker knew the truth? I really didn't know. "Jamie, I've been looking everywhere for you," a voice said from behind me. I immediately recognized it as Winters. I stepped back from Parker and turned to face her. She was smirking at me, and I glared at her. "What?" Parker spat. "You couldn't have waited at least 2 minutes?" My cheeks heated up at his words, but I didn't turn to look at him. Winter rolled her eyes at him before looking back at me again. "We want you to open our gifts." I furrowed my eyebrows. Gifts? I was fine with the party itself and all the food. Oh, you didn't have... I began, but Winter cut me off. Yes, we did. Now come on. She dragged me away from Parker. I glanced back at him, and he was gone. Winter dragged me to the girls who were sitting at a table with gift bags sitting on it. The girls ushered for me to take a seat on a chair, which I did. Peyton handed me her present first. I pulled the wrap box inside of the bag and unwrapped it. A smile formed on my face when I saw it was a black leather jacket that I had wanted. There was also a charm bracelet that had charms. Each had a word on it. Peyton had said that the words described me. I opened the other gifts from the girls and received clothes, makeup, jewelry, a phone case for my phone, and some other stuff. Jonas and Xander had even given me some new headphones and a hoodie that said, sarcasm, the ability to insult idiots without them realizing it. Thank you, guys. I thanked them. They all gave me more hugs. Alpha would like to speak with you. Xander informed me as I picked up the scraps of wrapping paper and threw it into a trash can. I nodded. Where is he? His eyes glazed over meaning. He was mind-linking Parker. His eyes cleared up and he responded, the other side of the stage near the food table with the drinks. I went off into the direction Xander gave me and found Parker. He was holding a cup of soda in his right hand. You want to talk to me? I spoke as I walked up to him. He nodded as he took a sip of his drink. He placed the empty cup down on the table. I did, he said as he glanced at something behind me. I believe it's my turn to give you your present. I furrowed my eyebrows as he waved someone over. I turned around and I was engulfed into a large hug. My eyes were wide in shock and a lump was in my throat. I was released from the hug and I stared at my family. Anthony and Serena were next to them. What are you guys doing here? I asked once I finally found my voice. They all had grins on their faces, and I found one on my face, too. Alpha Parker invited us. My mother responded. He did. Everyone nodded. Serena hugged me tightly. You look so pretty. How's my bestie doing? Anthony joined the hug, too. What are you saying? She's my bestie. Serena scoffed. Shut up, Anthony. Everyone knows she likes me better, she retorted. I laughed at them. I really miss their bickering. So how are you, princess? Staying out of trouble? Anthony asked after he rolled his eyes at Serena. I shrugged my shoulders. Maybe, maybe not. I glanced at Parker out of the corner of my eyes and noticed he was glaring daggers at Anthony. Of course. My sisters, Zoe and Shelby, walked over to Parker. Zoe had on a blue dress and Shelby had on a green one. Parker bent down, so he was at level with them. What are your names? He asked them. They looked at him curiously. I'm Zoe, Zoe responded. I'm Shelby, Shelby said as well. Parker looked between the two. Are you guys twins? They both nodded. You're Jamie's mate? Shelby asked as she poked his chest. Yeah, I am. Didn't she, Ray? She was cut off by Zoe placing a hand over her mouth. My eyes went wide, and I glanced at Parker. An expression I couldn't decipher across Parker's face. My mother was about to scold her, but Parker spoke instead. She did. But I definitely deserved it, he admitted as he scratched the back of his neck. Zoe turned to look at me. I like him. It was my brother's turn to step forward. However, he decided to cut to the chase and throw questions at Parker left and right. Have you treated my sister right? Parker didn't hesitate as he looked at the ground ashamed. No, I haven't. Andrew narrowed his eyes at him. Are you trying? Parker nodded his head. Of course I am. He then murmured quietly, I just don't know how. I was the only one that heard him, or at least I think I was. After more questions, he finally asked, How do you get your hair to look like that? That's enough, Drew, I said to him. He was about to protest, but I turned to the rest of my family. I want you guys to meet some of my new friends. I introduced them to all of my friends. Serena instantly clicked with all of them, and I'm sure the girls like her already. Anthony got to know Xander and Jonas. The girls also like Zoe and Shelby. Andrew had questioned Xander and Jonas about their hair also. I had talked with Serena about things. I told her about what Parker has been doing, like giving me roses and made me breakfast. I also told her about my confusing feelings towards Parker. She said that I'm probably beginning to like him and give in to the bond. I still wasn't sure, though. I excused myself from the group and started searching for Parker. I wanted to thank him for inviting my family. Honestly, it was by far the best gift I received today. Looking for me? A voice asked from behind me. I turned around to face Parker. I nodded. Why'd you invite my family? I asked him. I tried to keep myself from staring at his muscles, which were bulging through his shirt. He had unbuttoned a couple buttons at the top. He shrugged. You missed them and wanted to see them. So I thought you'd like to see them on your birthday while being here. Thank you, I said, smiling at him, and he nodded. I had the urge to kiss him like I did before. His full pink lips were pulled back in a small, closed-mouth smile directed towards me. I stared at him, and he gave me a confused look. A lot of feelings were flowing through me, and I couldn't decipher what they meant. Without even thinking, I grabbed his wrist and dragged him away from the tent. I pulled him to the closest place I could spot, which was a shed holding the training gear. I opened the door. What or why? I didn't let him finish as I slammed him hard against the door and roughly pressed my lips to his. Chapter 29. What or why? I didn't let him finish as I slammed him hard against the door and roughly pressed my lips to his. My hands gripped his wrists and pinned him to the door as I pressed my body against his. Parker went rigid and didn't respond at first, but he slowly started to when my grip on his wrist tightened. I could feel his heartbeat, which was quick, probably faster than mine. Heat coursed through my body as our lips moved quickly together, and our breaths were coming out ragged. I let go of his wrists and moved my hands up around his neck and to his hair. Parker's hands gripped my waist before sliding down to my thighs and hoisted me up. I immediately wrapped my legs around his waist and pulled him closer to me. Parker turned us around, so my back was now pressed to the door. I ran my tongue over his lips, asking for entrance, before biting down gently, and an animalistic growl escaped his throat as he opened his mouth. Our tongues fought for dominance. What sounded like a moan escaped both of us when I rolled my hips against his, my underwear rubbing against his jean-clad front. I forgot that I was wearing a dress that had ridden up. Parker was holding me up by cupping my ass with his two large hands. I tugged roughly on his hair and pulled away. Both of us were breathing heavily as we stared at each other. His eyes were pure black as he stared at me, and I knew mine was the same. Where'd you learn to do that? Parker asked through his breaths. His voice was a few octaves lower and sounded so sexy. His lips were swollen and red from us kissing, and I knew mine was the same. I've never kissed anyone like that. It was amazing. Doesn't matter, I responded as I tightened my legs around him. I pushed his head to the side and pressed my lips to his jaw. He sucked in a breath as my lips moved down to his neck. He let out a quiet groan as I sucked on the skin down his neck. I made sure it was enough to feel good, but not enough that it would leave a mark. Why are you such a tease? His voice was strained, and a loud groan escaped him as I sucked where I was supposed to mark him. I smirked against his skin, but the area between my legs tightened at the sound of him groaning. I pulled away from him, and my eyes widened slightly as I noticed the faint red marks on his neck. It wasn't hickeys, but it was some of the lipstick that I was wearing. I then looked at Parker, who had a dazed look on his face. His lips had smeared lipstick. It honestly looked hot, and I especially liked the idea that it was from me. I smirked. You might want to go wash yourself." I slowly got down from Parker. He watched me, but didn't say anything. "Go take a shower or something," I said as I glanced down at his little friend, which clearly looked excited. Parker snapped out his dazed look, and his eyes focused on me. "Why don't you take care of it?" He lightly pushed me against the wall and brought his lips back down to mine. After kissing for a while, I decided that we should probably stop. He went to the pack house, probably to straighten up. I contemplated going with him because my makeup was probably smeared, but I feared that we probably wouldn't be straightening up. I went to the drinks and got myself some water. Parker Mason. I leaned against the sink, deep in thought. I still couldn't believe that Jasmine had kissed me. It was amazing. The way she took control was pretty hot. What made her do it? I couldn't get the image of Jasmine pushing me against the wall. She's so strong. She does have beta blood, and she is made to be a Luna. She'll make a perfect Luna. 2. My Luna. My wolf was pretty excited the whole time. I didn't know what to do. The whole time I was worried I'd do something wrong, like, what if I bite her tongue? What if my breath smells bad? Or what if I drop her? I guess all these thoughts are all normal to those who are kissing someone for the first time. My eyes landed on the red spots on my neck from Jasmine's lipstick. How can she be so beautiful without even trying? I ran 2 fingers across it and shivered as it still was tingling from her lips. I rubbed my face and neck with water, but I couldn't get rid of the feeling of her lips on me. If kissing felt so good, I couldn't imagine what marking or mating would feel like. I was happy that Jasmine gets to mark me. Alphas are gifted that they are able to experience the pleasure of being marked. Every other male was not able to. Fully mating is a whole different story. Xander told me it's the best feeling in the world. I sometimes envy his relationship with his mate. If I hadn't been such an asshole and didn't let lust get in the way, Jasmine and I could have had a relationship like that. I don't blame Jasmine for pushing me away, but I do blame myself. She's been through a lot. So have I. But what happened to her isn't something anyone would want to experience. My heart ached at her pain. I didn't know much about love, but I was still capable of learning. I wanted to learn, but I didn't know how. The walls that I had built up was slowly falling apart just because of my mate. I didn't know if it was a good thing or bad thing. I just didn't want to lose her, too. After my mother had died, I had no one to love me. My father hated me. My pack hated me. I even thought that my mate would hate me as soon as I found her. I had thought about my mate all the time, wondering what she would be like. My mother would tell me stories about how her and my father met. Of course me, being the boy I was, would always complain. But I enjoyed how happy she was telling them. I ran my fingers through my hair, trying to tame it. I smoothed out my shirt before exiting the bathroom. I decided to go back to the party. What I didn't know was if Jasmine and I were supposed to act like it didn't happen. I was drawn from my thoughts when a hand clamped down on my back. "Hey, man, where have you been?" Xander asked as he handed me a cup of soda. I gladly took it and took a swig of it. I shrugged my shoulders. I had to use the restroom. I half lied. Xander narrowed his eyes at me as he observed my face. He looked suspicious, but didn't say anything. Jonas and Xander talking to me, but I wasn't paying attention. My eyes were locked on Jasmine's form as she chatted with a Serena girl and that guy. My hands clenched at the thought of her and that guy having a past. Did they have a past? It didn't take a smart person to know that he has feelings for her. I turned back to the guys. "Jasmine kissed me." I blurted it out. They stopped talking and stared at me. "She kissed you?" I nodded my head, glancing away from them, waiting for their stupid and perverted comments. Xander playfully shoved me. "Well done. How was it? How did it happen?" Jonas also asked. I rolled my eyes at them before telling them what happened. When I finished, Xander's nose was scrunched up a little. You didn't need to give so much detail, he stated. Jonah's reaction was completely different. That's hot. We continued talking about what happened, but I was able to change the subject to other things. A feminine voice stopped our conversing. Parker. The voice screeched and I cringed. I turned to face her, and whatever emotion on my face vanished as I glared at her. It's Alpha to you, I snapped. Stephanie didn't look like she cared that I snapped at her, and that made me even more irritated. This girl never knew when to quit. She thought I was her mate, which obviously wasn't true. She just wanted the Lunar position. Dance with me. She whined, and I scrunched my nose, not wanting to even think about how similar that would be to hell. No, I replied before turning back up Xander and Jonas, who looked annoyed as well. Why not? She continued as she placed a hand on my shoulder. I shrugged her hand off and made a move to walk away, but she grabbed my wrist. Don't touch me, I hissed at her. I turned around to face her fully and glared at her. Fear flashed through her eyes as I took an intimidating step towards her. Touch me again and you'll be punished, I said with narrowed eyes at her. You are not my mate, and you will never have the Lunar position. You are not fit for it anyways. She looked hurt by my words, but she quickly pushed it away. Neither is that bitch. She's not your mate. I growled at her among her cower back. Don't talk about my mate and your Luna like that. She's perfect for the position. Disrespect her again and you're out of the pack. She nodded wordlessly before walking away. I sighed relieved before turning back to Xander and Jonas, who were watching with smirks on their faces. I can't wait for the day she's out of here, Jonas muttered. She's such a bitch. I couldn't agree more. She never left me alone. Maybe now she will. Impressive, the voice of my mate said from behind me. I turned around and noticed her leaning against one of the poles, holding up the tent. Her dress and hair was neat, and her makeup was fixed. She looked as if nothing happened between us. The whole thing kept replaying in my head. I didn't know what to do except for the fact that I wanted to kiss her again. She stared and I grew tense at her gaze. She then stood up and walked over to me. I tried calming my nerves, but I couldn't. My eyes swept down her body, watched as her dress hugged her abdomen tightly, and the skirt of the dress flowed, showing off her tan legs. I looked back up at her, who was looking at my neck, a smirk on her lips. I furrowed my eyebrows at her. What? I asked curiously. She shook her head. Nothing except you didn't get rid of all the lipstick marks, she responded nonchalantly. I didn't. Oh, well. She shook her head before turning on her heels and walked away. I wanted to follow her, but I didn't. I turned back to Xander and Jonas. They both were looking at my neck and snickering. I glared at them, but they just started laughing. Rolling my eyes, I walked away from them. I was laying on my bed. Tears leaked through my eyes as I buried my face into my pillow. I shouldn't be crying, but I couldn't help it. She was gone, it was my fault, according to my dad and the rest of my pack members. The sound of my door opened jolted me upright. My eyes landed on the shadow standing in my doorway. He had a belt in one hand and a whiskey bottle in the other. My eyes went wide as he advanced towards me. It's your fault. He shouted at me before his hand landed down on my cheek. It stung, and I knew it was going to leave a mark. He shoved me roughly to the floor. When I tried to get up, he would kick me back down. I didn't say anything knowing that he would just hit me harder. You deserve to feel the pain I went through. It should have been you. After he said that, I felt a stinging pain on my back. It came back, one after the other. I didn't cry out in pain knowing that's what he wanted, so I bit my lips, already tasting the blood. It's all your fault. Those words was all I could hear in my head as he continued hitting me. He delivered one last hit to my back before he left. My lifeless body laid on the floor until I decided that I should probably clean the cuts. With shaky legs, I stood up, almost falling back down because of my weak legs. I struggled to walk to the bathroom, but I did. My eyes landed on my torn shirt, and I pulled it off. The cuts on my back had reopened, and blood was falling out and sliding down my back. I stared at my 15-year-old self. I looked lifeless and alone. My once bright green eyes were dull. My skin had paled from the loss of blood because of all the abuse I had been receiving for 10 months. My father had started abusing me 2 months after my mother died. She had been gone a year. I turned on the shower faucet and allowed the water to pour down my stinging back, washing the blood away and whatever life I had with it. I wasn't living, I was just alive. I shouldn't have been alive. I should have been killed instead of my mother. My eyes opened when I felt shocks on my skin. My eyes focused on the beautiful face, staring down at me with worry. Her hands were cupping my cheeks, and she caressed my cheeks with her thumbs. "Are you okay?" Her sweet angelic voice filled my ears. I nodded my head wordlessly. I was lying. I was not okay. My mother would be dead 8 years from Sunday. 2 days away. "Bullshit," she whispered as she narrowed her eyes at me. "You're not okay." I could feel it through the bond. How could she have felt it when she rejected me? After rejection, you don't feel the other's wolf unless they completed the mating process. I took her hand on my face with my own and gently pulled her next to me. She moved her body so her back was pressed against my chest. I wrapped my arm around her body while the other was underneath her. "Are you going to tell me what happened?" she asked me quietly. I thought about it for a moment before deciding she deserved to know. It was about my father. He was abusing me like he usually did. That's all. It was just a memory. I told her. She didn't say anything, and I was glad she didn't. The quietness was all I needed. After minutes passed, I could hear Jasmine's even breaths, meaning she was asleep. I couldn't fall back asleep. I brought my face and buried it into her hair and breathed in her scent. It comforted me. But all I could think about was, what did I do to deserve a mate like her? Had the moon goddess forgiven me? Chapter 30. Who's on what team? Serena asked as we entered the fairly large building. Black carpets laid on the floor, and the lights were dim. Arcade games lined the walls, and a front desk sat at one end. We all walked up to the desk. The lady sitting behind it glanced up from her phone. "How many?" she asked as she looked at all of us. 13, Peyton responded to the lady. The lady nodded and typed on the computer. She looked up once again. "Okay, I need each of you to give me the nicknames. You guys will be playing the next game in 10 minutes. We all gave the lady our names before chilling at some tables. There isn't even an amount of us, but we can make it work. Peyton stated before looking at all of us. "I think the team should be Parker, Jonas, Xander, Anthony, Andrew, and I against Riley, Kennedy, Vivian, Jasmine, Logan, Winter, and Serena." We all agreed before Jonas protested. "How come they get an extra person?" he whined. Peyton rolled her eyes at him. "Deal with it, you big baby. You have me on your team. There's no way we could lose. Besides, Riley and Vivian basically count as one person. That's how bad they are at laser tag." "Hey!" They both scowled at her. "Bitch!" Riley muttered under her breath. Peyton laughed at her. Andrew piped into the argument. "Jasmine basically counts as 2 people, though. Therefore we are about to lose," he said. They all started arguing, and I just laughed at them. Parker, and I haven't talked yet since the night before. I woke up that morning, and Parker wasn't in the bed. No one knew that we kissed except Serena. I think Jonas and Xander knew because they kept playfully pushing Parker around, whose cheeks were tinted pink, and they would make kissy faces when I glanced at them. No one else noticed. Minutes later, a voice spoke through the speakers announcing that we needed to head to the room, where they would be explaining the rules. We all went into the room, and the guy in there started going over the rules. He looked like he was about 18 years old, and I noticed he kept looking over at the girls. You'll be divided into 2 teams, green and blue. You will not be able to shoot your own team member, he told us. He went over what not to do and how to work the guns. He told us about the targets inside the arena that are able to shoot you unless you shoot them, in which you'll get a bonus like invisibility, meaning the light of your equipment goes out, or rapid fire. When he finished, he led us to the room with the gear in it. I went to my given number and put my gear on. The lights on it lit up and were blue. My chosen name, Jamie, showed up on the screen of the gun. I turned to Serena, who was putting her gear on as well. What did you choose for your name? I asked her curiously. A girl, she replied. I raised my eyebrows. That's your username? She nodded her head. Yeah, so it would tell whoever I shot that they were shot by a girl. It would also be fun to rub it in their face, unless, of course, it was Peyton. I laughed, shaking my head at her. She's so weird, but that's why she's my best friend. All right, you guys can head out now. The game is getting ready to start. The guy from earlier spoke from next, or a door that was now open. We all went through the door and entered the arena. It looked as if it was 3 levels. Walls were scattered around, creating what looked like a maze and was easy to get lost in. Black lights hit my vision, causing what little white I had on my black hoodie to become a glowing purple. Smoke filled the air, giving the arena an eerie look to it. I followed some of my teammates up a ramp to the 2nd level, and we scattered around, hiding and ready to get the green team. I crouched behind a small wall. My eyes narrowed as I peeked around it and kept my gun pointed to the area behind the wall. My eyes landed on Riley, who was behind another wall across mine. She smirked at me, and I smirked back when we saw a glimpse of green reflecting off of the wall behind us. Right when I saw the person come into view, I aimed my gun and pulled the trigger. The lights on their gear flashed white before going out. I grinned as they let out a groan. Seriously? I recognized their voice as Jonas. I laughed at him as he cursed under his breath before going around the corner away from us. I heard footsteps coming our way after Jonas left, and we kept prepared but relaxed when we saw Blue. I didn't know Parker was so good at this kind of stuff, Serena commented as she walked towards us. He is, I asked curiously. I guess that's something we bother like. Laser tag. She nodded her head. Yeah, he got me quite a few times, and I didn't even know where he was. How did you know it was him? Riley questioned as her eyes stayed alert in case someone came. Who else would put their username as Alpha? I couldn't help but snicker. Of course he would put that as his name. Riley looked over at us and suppressed a laugh as well. I looked away from Serena and started walking away. I'm going to go score me some points, I said to them before turning a corner. I shot the green team many times as I hid and stayed out of sight. I hit some of the targets and received the bonus, invisibility, along with points. I took that as my chance to get closer to Green's base, another target that if I shoot, I get extra points. Since I was still part of my old pack, I mind-linked Serena. How's our base doing? I asked her. 4 people from Green are attacking us. Are you heading to theirs? It should be open except for the other 2 still out there. She responded to me. Yeah, I'm almost there. I shut off the mind link and focused on everything around me. I reached the base and looked around me. I didn't see any green, but it could be a trap. I sniffed the air and could smell Parker's intoxicating scent. He's here. Before I could react, a hand gripped my wrist, pulled me behind a wall, blocking everything around it. From the sparks shooting up my arm, I knew it was him. I was about to say something. Warm lips were placed on mine. My eyes went wide as his hand on my wrist gripped the side of my neck, deepening the kiss. I responded and let my free hand grip the material of his shirt on his back. Our lips moved softly against each other, and in an agonizingly slow pace that has my toes curling. His lips molded perfectly against mine, and I knew there was no way I'd get used to the feeling. He pulled me closer to him, but groaned when he realized the gear we were wearing didn't allow us any closer. I forgot that we were playing laser tag. An idea immediately popped in my head. A small smirk played on my lips. I moved the hand on his lower back to his hair and gently tugged his hair before pressing my lips back to his. He let out a quiet groan as our lips moved together. His hand moved my lower back, which had lifted the material of my hoodie and tank top underneath it. So his hand touched my bare skin. My skin tingled from his touch, and I almost forgot about the plan. Not wanting to get distracted anymore, I slowly lifted my gun up and pointed it to the light on his gear. I pulled the trigger, and the green lights became white before turning off. I quickly pulled away, letting out a laugh as I backed away from him. His eyes were wide as he gaped at me. I turned on my heel and quickly went for the base as he was recovering. I aimed my gun at the big green circle and shot it as many times as I could before I heard Parker's footsteps nearing. The light flashed white, and a buzzing sound came from it, meaning I got it. Yes! I cheered before my lights flashed white. I turned around to see Parker pointing his gun at me with a smirk on his face. I quickly moved out his line of vision, so he doesn't shoot me again once I recover. I stood around the corner and waited. Once recovered, I went back around the corner and shot him before quickly getting out of there. I heard his footsteps chasing me, but I weaved around corners and constantly looked back. I shot other green team members. As I did this, I did manage to get shot multiple times, but got them back. I also did manage to get their base again, much to Parker's dislike. Once the game finished, we all filed out of the room and put our gear away. That was so fun. Logan said to me. I grinned at her and nodded. It was... Come on, let's see who won, Winder said as she grabbed our arms and dragged us to the scoreboard in the lobby. The guys stood there with scowls on their faces, along with Peyton, who was laughing at them. My team, however, was cheering and laughing at them. You guys cheated, Jonas stated bitterly. And how do you think we did that? Riley asked as we finally approached them. Jonas turned and pointed a finger at me. She obviously got Parker to allow her to get the base multiple times. Parker frowned at this and crossed his arms. No, she didn't. I rolled my eyes at them and looked at the scoreboard. My team won indeed, and I won first place. Parker won second place, and I was just a few points ahead of him. How lucky. Maybe Parker just sucks. I teased, earning a scoff from Parker. Oh, please. I was so close to beating you, he pointed out. I chuckled, shaking my head. Not close enough. I joked. My mind, however, was thinking about the kiss we shared earlier in the arena. I could still feel my lips tingling, but I tried to ignore it. As we were all walking out, Parker stopped abruptly. What is it? Xander asked him with his brows furrowed. There were trespassers on packed territory. A couple rogues and a hunter, he said. All trace of playfulness was gone on his face and was replaced by seriousness. Shit, Jonas muttered under his breath. We all piled into our cars and went back to the Lunar Shadow territory. As soon as we got back, Parker, Xander, and Jonas went to deal with the trespassers, while us girls sat in the kitchen of the pack house. Why do you think there was a hunter with rogues? I asked, not being able to stop thinking about it. Peyton shrugged. I don't know. I don't understand why they are working together. Hunters were originally supposed to hunt rogues, but things changed. I honestly don't know what's going on, she told us. We all agreed with her. Winter's eyes glazed over, meaning she was being mind-linked. After a few moments, her eyes cleared up. They held fear in them as they locked with mine. I furrowed my eyebrows. What? I asked her. You are needed in the prison, she said to me. I raised a brow at her. Why would I be needed there? I have a bad feeling about this, Irene said to me, and I agreed with her. Winter put down her glass of water. I'll walk you there. I nodded my head as we headed to the front door. I heard Peyton's voice before we left. Tell me what's like down there. I've always wanted to see it. Winter and I went behind 2 separate trees and shifted into our wolves. I picked up my clothes in my mouth and went out from behind the tree. Winter was standing there in her gray wolf. It was almost white, but the ears were black, and she had some gray highlights on her wolf. She nodded her head towards me, and we took off toward the prison. We shifted back and put our clothes on. Guards were standing by the entrance. It was a small building, but I knew that the actual prison was most likely underground. The building was made of stone bricks that looked so old and could collapse any time soon. Moss and webs covered parts of the bricks. The guard stopped us from going inside. Luna, you shouldn't be here. I frowned. Wasn't I called to come here? Before I could say anything, Winter spoke for me. Beta Xander asked for her. Alpha didn't tell us. One guard spoke, and Winter waved him off. It's fine, she said before pulling me inside. She was about to leave, but I stopped her. You're not staying? I asked her. She hesitated for a moment before shrugging and walking back over to me. I guess I can stay. We both walking down the spiral stairs. A strong smell hit my nose that almost had me gagging. The place reeked blood, rotting flesh, and death. I scrunched up nose and glanced at Winter, who had the same reaction as me. At the end of the stairs there was a long hallway. The walls were made of stone and floor was a smooth stone. At the end of it was a big metal door. I turned the handle and opened it. It revealed a corridor that had hallways branching off of it. The horrid smells from before filled my nose and had gotten stronger. The place was dark except for the occasional light hanging from the ceiling. This place will definitely give me nightmares, Winter muttered under breath. What sounded like a cry of pain pierced through the not-so-clean air and reverberated the walls. Both Winter and I flinched. Definitely. We followed where the cries were coming from. Another shriek filled the air, and we both flinched again. We turned a corner where lights came to our vision. My eyes landed on a man who was kneeling on the ground and chained to the wall. His body was all bloody, covered with cuts and dirt. He was breathing heavily, and I got a look of his face. Fear was clearly written on his face. He was shirtless, and his pants was all ripped up. Winter and I stood in place when we took in Parker's appearance, who stood in front of the man with a whip tightly in his hand. He was shirtless and stood there wearing jeans that hung loosely on his hips. He looked murderous, as if he wanted to kill the man in front of him. I couldn't see his face, only the back of his head. Blood covered his body, and I knew it wasn't his own. Jonas and Xander stood off to the side. They kept glancing at each other with worry. Tell me. Parker's voice boomed throughout the place, and it had me cowering back a little. His voice was full of anger and rage. His wolf was obviously taking control. I watched as he lifted up the whip and connected it with the man's back. He screamed out in pain as the sound of the whip cracking echoed off the walls. No! The man spoke weakly, which earned a raging growl from Parker, who delivered a punch to the guy's face. I could hear the crack from his nose all the way from where we were standing. That's enough, Parker. Xander tried to calm Parker down as he took a daring step towards him. Parker's head snapped towards him, and he growled at him. I was able to get a clear view of his face. His eyes were glowing a bright yellow. That had Winter and I flinching. Holy shit, she whispered. I think they might have heard her, because all four heads snapped towards our direction. I glanced at Winter, who looked scared. I probably had the same look on my face. I haven't been scared in a long time, but I believe that this is probably one of the scariest things I've seen, besides being raped and harassed. I knew I couldn't get what I'd just seen out of my head. Some of the rumors that I've heard were true. Parker was ruthless and cruel when it came to rogues. It looked as if the rogue was on the brink of death. Winter took my hand and pulled me into the cell. Jonas' eyes widened when he saw us, but Xander looked relieved. Parker's nose flared when he saw me and his jaw clenched. He turned and glared at Xander before taking steps towards him. "Why did you bring her here?" he shouted as he shoved his beta against the wall roughly. Xander gasped for air as his back connected with the wall. "You need her. She needs to calm your wolf down," he managed out as he struggled under Parker's death grip. Parker narrowed his at him before stepping away from him. He then turned his gaze to mine. "Leave," he said to me. His wolf was still in control. "You shouldn't be here." I frowned and shook my head. "No, Xander is right. You need to calm down. You obviously aren't getting answers. You can come back later." Parker was about to say something, but the man on the ground spoke. "Is this the beauty I've heard so much about?" All brought our attention to him with confused looks. "What are you talking about?" I asked as I took a step towards him. He looked up at me, and I looked away, not wanting to look at his face. It was all bloody and scratched up. "He wanted me to deliver a message to you," he said, which caused me to look back at him. "Who?" I asked. The man grinned weakly. "That I can't say," he responded. I frowned at him. "Who is this person he's talking about? What's the message?" "He's coming for you, Jasmine. The time is almost here. He'll be here in 1 month," he spoke. 1 month? Who was coming for me? I stepped back from him and blinked. Parker was immediately beside me. He grabbed the man around his neck and snapped it easily. He then turned to me and took my hand in his. I continued to stare at the man's lifeless body. "We'll interrogate the other rogue and Hunter tomorrow," Parker told Jonas and Xander, who nodded. I looked away from the body and allowed Parker to take me out of the cell. Chapter 31. Who do you think he was talking about? Parker asked me as we sat in the living room of his house. We were watching TV, but I knew neither of us were actually watching. My family was still here, but I needed time to think. I shrugged my shoulders. If I knew, I wouldn't have asked the man myself. I responded. I glanced at him out of the corner of my eyes. "What about you?" Parker looked deep in thought. "I don't know. Obviously, whoever he is, got as many rogues and hunters as he could get to work together. It's also someone who knows you. Maybe a relative or something. Maybe it's someone who knows me," he muttered. His eyebrows drew together as if he remembered something, and he clenched his fists. His calmness was gone, and the previous anger was somewhat back. "What?" I asked, unsure if he was going to break something or not. Hopefully not the TV. It was definitely a good one. It had a nice sound system and large screen. He leaned back on the couch and roughly ran his fingers through his hair. "I think the man who's after you is the same man who attacked my pack and killed my mother. Today we will be fighting in our human forms. Partner up, take turns practicing on defense." Matthew, the head warrior and pack trainer, spoke loud and clear so we could all hear him. I partnered up with Winter, like usual. She was pretty quick and had said her father trained her all the time. "Do you want to be on defense first, or should I?" Winter asked me. I shrugged, not really caring. She moved to stand in a defense stance as she prepared herself. We started training and took turns. We successfully managed to make ourselves tired before training was over and became sloppy. Training has been going for 3 hours without breaks, so of course we would be tired. "Take a break, everyone. Alpha has something to say when the break is over. You have 5 minutes. Matthew spoke up, both Winter, and I let out a sigh of relief as we stopped training. "You did great," I said to Winter. She grinned at me. "You too." I picked up my small white towel and wiped the sweat off the back of my neck. Today, training was done in the gym because it was raining pretty hard outside. I picked up my bottle of water and finished the rest of it. I went to the recycling bin and threw the empty bottle in it. A voice stopped me from leaving. You did good today. I turned to the source. My lips curled up into a smirk. You watched? I asked curiously. Parker lifted his hand and scratched the back of his neck. I watched the way his muscles moved at the action. He had on a tight black tank top that hugged his muscles and black athletic pants. Sweat covered his body in a yummy way. I averted my eyes so I wouldn't keep looking at his muscles. Of course, I watch everyone in my pack to know how they are doing and help them if they need it, he said, while his eyes weren't on my face, but trailing down my body. I had on a black sports bra with light blue on it and matching athletic shorts. His eyes lingered on my stomach, and I unconsciously took a small step back. He looked back up, so his eyes met mine. Why are you wearing that? He asked, gesturing to my clothes. I placed my hands on my hips. Because I was training, I responded in a duh tone. He frowned at me but didn't say anything. Before he turned to leave, he said to me, I'm taking you somewhere tonight, so dress casually. He then walked away. I watched his back for a moment, confused. I was about to walk back over to Winter when a hand gripped my wrist, stopping me. Back off, a snobby voice hissed at me. I turned to Stephanie and threw her an annoyed look. What do you want? I snapped at her, clearly not in the mood to deal with her shit. She glared at me. I want you to leave Parker alone. He doesn't want you, she sneered. I rolled my eyes at her. That's rich coming from you. I retorted, Are you sure it's me he doesn't want? Besides, how can I back off and leave him alone when he's my mate? Date always finds his way. My words even surprised me a little bit. I ignored what I was feeling inside. I'll think about it later. Stephanie scowled. He's just using you to get a pup to keep the bloodline going. After, he'll kick you out and make me Lunar. He told me himself. She's lying, Irene said. She's just trying to get rid of us. It's not going to work. I agreed with her and laughed dryly at Stephanie. How pathetic. Coming up with lies so you can have a man who you know has a mate. You know that's looked down upon, yet you're doing it anyways. Go find yours and leave mine alone, I said coldly to her. She opened her mouth to say something, but Matthew's voice cut her off. Break's over, he called. Everyone moved over to him, and Parker was standing there as well. Once everyone was over there, Parker began talking. We believe there will be an attack in just 1 month. We need to train as much as we can. His voice was loud and clear. It bounced off the walls of the gym. Someone spoke up from the crowd. How do you know someone is planning to attack? They asked. Parker looked at them before looking around. We interrogated a rogue who trespassed with another rogue and a hunter. Murmurs and whispers erupted at the mention of a hunter seen with rogues. When Parker cleared his throat, everyone hushed. We will interrogate the others tomorrow. As for right now, we will keep guard up by doubling the patrolling around the borders. Any questions? No one said anything, and Parker just nodded his head before dismissing us. I walked to Winter. Are you going to prison tomorrow for the interrogation? She shook her head. No, Xander doesn't want me there. He was pissed that I went earlier, but whatever. I saw Xander approaching her, so I said bye and decided to leave. I stopped in my tracks when I noticed Stephanie talking to Parker and touch his arm. I felt anger surge through me of him touching other females or them touching him. I know that's very hypocritical for me to think like that because of my past self. But these feelings I couldn't get rid of. However, that anger disappeared when I watched him push her hand off of him and try to walk away. I couldn't help but smirk. You know it's rude to stare, princess. I jumped at the voice right behind me. I didn't even hear someone come over. I turned and smiled when Anthony stood there, laughing at me. I crossed my arms over my chest. I wasn't staring. I pointed out, obviously lying. They just happened to be in my line of vision when I was walking. Anthony just smirked at me. So how's the princess doing? I rolled my eyes at the nickname, but honestly missed it. Pretty good, you? I replied. Anthony leaned against the wall next to the entrance of the gym. He was wearing a white t-shirt and black athletic pants. He attended training, but Serena didn't want to, and she went with Logan to watch the pups. I'm okay, he responded, the smile that was on his face faltering a bit. I narrowed my eyes at him before slowly nodding. Did you have fun earlier? He asked me as he kicked off the wall and started walking with me. I nodded, grinning. Yeah, it was really fun. I'm glad you and Serena were able to join us. The smile made its way back on his face when he glanced at me. Me too. We walked in silence on the sidewalk to the pack house. The three of us should hang out before Serena and I leave. We haven't done it since you left. Serena has been preparing to move to her mate's pack. I miss it, Anthony said, breaking the silence. I found my shoulders sagging. I did miss spending time with them. Even though Anthony sometimes annoys the hell out of me, he's one of the most important people in my life. We should, I noted, maybe we can do something tonight, he suggested. I smiled at that idea, but remembered Parker said he was going to take me somewhere. I looked down at the ground sadly. I can't. Parker's taking me out tonight. I told him. He frowned but nodded. Okay, maybe some other time. He trailed off. I don't know if another time is soon, I said to him. Serena is leaving, and with the attack coming up, I'll be very busy. You guys can go tonight. I can take you any other day, a voice said from behind us. We both stopped walking and turned around. Parker stood there, now with a black hoodie on, and his hands tucked in the pocket. I furrowed my brows. What? I asked stupidly. Parker watched my expression. He glanced at Anthony and then back at me. I said, you can go, he repeated. Really? I asked again, just to make sure I heard him correctly. He nodded his hand, and I found a small smile make its way onto my face. Thank you, I said to him. He nodded once again. His facial expression was emotionless, and I couldn't tell if he was disappointed or not. I felt Anthony place his hand on my shoulder to get my attention. I'm heading to the pack house. I'll tell Serena the plans and text you when we're ready, he informed me. Parker growled at Anthony, whose hand was still touching me. Parker was glaring at Anthony, and he was glaring back. They both just glared at each other, and I knew that if one didn't walk away, things would get bad. I removed Anthony's hand from my shoulder while rolling my eyes. Okay, see you later, I said to him before taking Parker's wrist and dragging him away. I let go of his wrist when we were a good distance away from Anthony. Parker continued walking away stiffly. What's wrong? I asked him, trying to catch up to him. He didn't slow down, but continued his pace, letting out a frustrated sigh. I stopped trying and decided to walk faster to get away from him. If he wants to ignore me, I'll ignore him. When I reached the entrance of the forest, I didn't hesitate to strip down and shift into my wolf. I picked up my clothes with my mouth and bolted towards Parker's house, not waiting for him. The trees whipped past me and the wind blew through my fur. Leaves coated the forest floor as the beginning of December was just days away. As I neared Parker's house, I moved quicker. Once I reached the opening, I went behind a tree and shifted back. I walked out of the forest and towards the front of Parker's house. I could tell Parker was behind, but that didn't stop me. Taking out my key, I unlocked the door and walked in and closed the door behind me. I went up the stairs and to my room. I prepared for a shower and hopped into it. I scrubbed shampoo into my hair and rinsed it out. I moved on to conditioner and body wash. When I was done, I turned to the water and got out, wrapping a towel around my body. I walked out of my bathroom and went into my closet, dropping my towel to the floor. I had music playing out loud and listened to Halsey's song, Gasoline. I pulled out a pair of skinny jeans and the hoodie I received for my birthday. I exited with the clothes in my hand and went to my dresser to a pair of underwear and a bra. When I bent down to pick up my towel, a growl resounded through the room. I stood up and froze, my towel still on the floor. I quickly turned to the door to see Parker standing there with his hand still on the doorknob. He was frozen into spot with a hot look. The green was gone and now replaced with a lustful haze. His eyes stayed on my face, not looking down. His grip on the knob tightened till his knuckles turned white while his other hand was clenched at his side. I didn't move, like a deer caught in its tracks. After moments of silence, Parker stepped into my room and slowly closed the door behind him. His eyes never once left my face as he took predatory steps towards me. My heartbeat quickened, and my breathing had a slight edge to it. As he neared, I felt my knees weaken because of the way Parker stared at me heatedly. His eyes were unbelievably dark, and I knew his wolf was at surface. I unconsciously took a step back as he was close enough to reach out and touch. Parker's hand shot out and gripped my waist. Warmth heated my cool, wet skin. Sparks seeped through me, making my lips part, and a strangled breath left him. He pulled me close so my bare chest touched his chest, which had a black shirt covering it. I looked up at Parker, who was already staring down at me with an emotion other than lust, but I couldn't tell what. His lips were parted, and his warm breath fanned my face. With my enhanced and stronger hearing, I could hear his heart hit against his chest loudly. The pads of his thumbs gently caressed the skin on my sides. Nervously, I bit my lip, which caused him to release a small groan as his eyes watched the movement. "Why are you such a tease?" he growled out as he lowered his head and buried his face in my hair. He breathed in my scent deeply before whispering, "You're so beautiful." My eyes widened at his words. I've been called many things such as hot, sexy, and many others, but beautiful was not one of them. I was lost at words. Instead, I felt my arms loosely wrap around his neck, and my fingers ran to the hair at the nape of it. Parker reached forward and moved an arm all the way around my waist, bringing me impossibly closer, so my naked body was flushed against his clothed one. His hand glided up the side of my arm and over my shoulder. It then slid up the side of my neck until it cupped my cheek. He brushed his thumb over my lip, and I gently pressed my lips against it. He sucked in a breath at the action, and his eyes stared at me hungrily. He briefly glanced down at my chest before back at my eyes. He then stepped away from me and picked up my towel behind me. He turned back to me and placed the towel around me, making sure it covered my body. "You're so tempting, but not today," he mumbled more to himself. He placed his lips on my forehead before heading towards my door. A small smirk played on his lips as he looked at me before leaving, mischief playing in his eyes. "Make sure the door is locked before flaunting yourself. Next time I won't be able to control myself." He then closed the door. I stared at the door for a moment before putting my clothes on. "Have you guys completed the mating?" Serena asked me as she took a bite of her pizza slice. We were currently at a pizza place that was in the human town in Parker's territory. Anthony stiffened at her question, and I shook my head. "No," I answered before taking a bite of my own slice. Anthony relaxed and took a sip of his soda. Serena stared at Anthony with a look of sympathy and looked back at me. "Do you think you're going to accept a bond?" I stopped chewing on the piece of pizza in my mouth. I thought for a moment, was I going to accept the bond? I swallowed my food before responding. "I don't know. I feel like I should. We finally started opening up to each other and understand what the other's gone through, but there's still things I don't know. I want to find out, though." I told her honestly. She smiled at me. "That's good. The key to a good relationship is, after all, communication. We continued eating and talked about random things. When we were done eating, I paid for the bill, much to Anthony's dislike. Serena, however, took the offer right up, especially if it meant free food. "Are you guys up for a movie?" I asked him as Anthony pulled Hikari up to the pack house. "Sure, if I can pick the movie," Serena said as she opened her car door and got out, closing the door behind her. I rolled my eyes at her before getting out myself. I walked up the stairs to the porch of the pack house. Anthony and Serena followed me in. We walked past the living room to see my family and some pack members chatting. My sisters were playing with some younger kids, while my brother was talking with others around his age. "Jamie, you're back." Zoe grinned as she jumped up from her spot on the floor. I hugged her when she and Shelby embraced me in a hug. "Yeah, I am. Why don't you go back and play? I'll hang out with you girls before you leave, okay?" I said to them. They both nodded and went back to their spots. I kissed my mom and dad on their cheeks before leading Anthony and Serena to the theater room. However, Parker walked out of his office and his eyes settled on me. "You're back," he stated. I nodded my head slowly. "Yeah, I noticed," I responded. He ignored what I said. "Where are you going?" he asked me. Serena and Anthony stood behind me. "We're going to watch a movie," I answered while gesturing to the closed door of the theater room. Parker's eyes flickered at Anthony and Serena for a moment before back at me. He slowly nodded. "Okay." I opened the door and gestured them to go inside. Before I could go inside, Parker stopped me. I turned to him, raising a brow. "Yes." He opened and closed his mouth before shrugging. "I'll see you later," he said quietly, and then walked away. Confused, I went in the room to see Anthony and Serena staring at me already. "Did you pick a movie?" I asked Serena, taking a seat on a beanbag. Instead of answering me, she stated, "I could practically feel you and Parker's sexual tension for each other radiating off of you from where I was standing." I rolled my eyes at her. "Whatever," I muttered, but a blush creeped up my cheeks. Serena just laughed as she put on a movie. Anthony took a seat on the beanbag next to me, and Serena took the spot on the other side of me. I didn't know the movie she picked, but I watched it anyways, although my mind was elsewhere. I couldn't stop thinking about what the rogue had said. Why were rogues and hunters working together? Serena stood up from her spot. "I'm going to get a snack." "Want anything?" Of course she's hungry again. "Yeah. Can you get me some Twizzlers?" "Oh, and a jar of Nutella with a spoon," I asked. She laughed, and so did Anthony, who asked for a soda. When Serena left, Anthony was still chuckling. "What?" I asked, looking away from the screen and at him. "You are so addicted to that stuff. You're so weird. Who even eats it by itself with a spoon?" He commented. I gaped at him. How dare he insult those who love the tasty spread? I may be weird, but there's nothing wrong with eating Nutella alone, I protested. He snorted. "Of course there isn't," he muttered under his breath. I was able to hear what he said and playfully punched his shoulder. He chuckled and reached over, messing up my hair. "There isn't anything wrong with being weird. Besides, everyone is unique," he said to me. A smile slipped onto my face, and he returned it. Serena's POV. I found my way to the kitchen and looked through the cabinets to find Jasmine, her Twizzlers, and Nutella. Next, I opened a fridge and pulled out a Coca-Cola for Anthony. My eyes scanned the pantry for a snack that caught my interest. I settled on a bag of Lay's because I was in the mood for something salty. I left the kitchen and walked down the hallway to the theater room, but stopped in my track when I noticed Parker standing outside of it, a look of sadness written clear on his face. His body stiffened when he noticed my presence. His face became blank, and I furrowed my brows. "Are you okay?" I asked, readjusting the things in my hands. He stuffed his hands in his jean pockets. "Of course." he replied before quickly glancing into the room. I walked forward and peeked into the room. Anthony and Jasmine were chatting and laughing, completely ignoring the movie. I noticed how close he was sitting next to her, but it was normal for them. He would always try to flirt with her, but it never works on her. He does have a crush on her, but I'm not sure if she knows or not. My mouth formed an O, and I looked at Parker, understanding what was wrong. They're just friends, I told him. He frowned a little and leaned back against the wall. Doesn't seem like it. He likes her, I can see it. I watched his emotions swirl in his eyes. I knew he really cared for Jasmine just by glancing at him. It wasn't just because of the bond. He does, I stated. He gave me a flat look, so I continued. But he knows she has a mate and won't get in the way. Does he have a mate? I looked away and stared at the floor. No, I finally said after a while. I couldn't imagine what it was like to witness your mate being killed. Anthony had told me what had happened after Jasmine left. I was heartbroken and didn't know why he never said anything. Parker didn't say anything after I answered. You care for her, don't you? It was more of a statement rather than a question. He nodded his head, and I smiled softly. Show her you care. Let her in. She'll let you in. She's likely going to accept the bond soon. She just doesn't want to get hurt again, I said quietly. I didn't know what it felt like to go through what Jasmine did. I did see what it did to her, and it was hard to see her best friend so broken. I've been an asshole to her. I regret it all so badly. I don't know how to make it up to her. The only person I ever loved was killed right in front of me. I grew up alone. I want Jasmine to show me how to love. I grew up thinking my mate would reject me, and she did. I want to do everything I can so she can accept me, he told me sadly. My eyes were wide by how much he said to me. There was so much meaning in his words, and I knew he was hurting. I also knew Jasmine was hurting too. I couldn't imagine what it felt like to be rejected or separated from my mate. I stared at him as he stared at the ground. I wasn't good at giving advice, but I decided to try my best. Spend time with her, but not too much time so she doesn't feel overwhelmed. Show her you care. Don't be demanding and don't pressure her into anything, I told him and then smirked. Tease her a bit if you have to. Girls hate it, but it lures us in. He nodded before kicking off of the wall. Thank you, he said to me, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. I could tell he wasn't used to saying thank you to people. I gave him a small smile before walking into the room. Finally, Jasmine muttered standing up and grabbed her Nutella and Twizzlers from me. Though I was going to have to get up and get it myself. At the same time, Anthony got up as well, taking his soda. What took you so long? He asked. I rolled my eyes at them. Hungry pigs. I hope Parker will use the advice I gave him.